Welcome to tommytruthfultv.com. I'm here with my brother from another mother, Doenut, and our special guest today, brother Archaix. What's up, guys?
Man, I'm doing good. How you guys?
Pretty
Good,
good.
good,
Yep.
brother. Good. Before we get going, family, this podcast today is sponsored through Body Align, the 5G cellular protection. The links are down in the description to that. We got our bracelets on. You put the technology on the back of your phone. Some good stuff, and they're nice enough to sponsor this and help us out. So, I want to give that plug and do this little intro, and we'll get going. Make sure y'all hit them likes. It helps it get out to the people. And we're going to get cracking here. So,
That intro was almost as dope as an Archaix intro.
I actually got that from what's that dude's name? He's some Christian dude, Steve Doy. Oh man, I can't remember his last name, but he had a long version of it in his video, and I took it and added a couple other clips to it, and that's how I made that intro. Stephen
was
Quayle.
pretty good.
Stephen Quayle. You know who I'm talking about? That Stephen Quayle dude.
I don't know him, but
Yeah, he's not.
Archaix, you're an artist as well. The book I was reading last night on the Phoenix phenomenon, you did the artwork for it, I believe.
Yeah, anything you see in black and white and pen work was all artwork I did when I was in prison, knowing that I was going to be publishing a lot of this material in the future. I just didn't know it was going to be YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like because I'm always looking at the symbolism of stuff, and I saw Saturn in there, and I noticed there was this archway as well. Because I'm always
Keystone geometry, yes.
Yeah, so it was really dope art, and I only got through I think 60 pages, but I watched a ton of videos. So
Right.
Yeah, and guys, the link to Archaix's book and all of his platforms is in the description. I put the link to your one book that I really like down there too, Archaix. You're selling it on Amazon, I believe. I was in the feds, did some time there and in the state too, brother. So I wish I would have got the knowledge you did. I was in there a young knucklehead,
Right.
doing dumb shit, but
Don't get me wrong. I was a knucklehead too. I mean, I've got the disciplinary history to prove it. I even got more time while I was in prison. It's just uh, prison time is not the theme on my channel. I talk about it, ancillary. I don't talk about it a lot just to illustrate anecdotes and points about my history. But maybe one day, maybe one day I'll do a video with somebody. And I'll just go straight prison and just tell you what it's really like in the inside of maximum security Texas prison. In 26 years, it is amazing that I survived. And I'm gonna tell you now, my first 12 years, I was a knucklehead. My entire
yeah, I
body,
did 26. My God.
yeah, but I was living a bifurcated life because I was still that reader that I was before I went to prison. I was reading from a very young age, going to libraries. My parents made me. I was raised a religionist, very staunch. But in prison, I lived two different lives. One of them was for the inmate population, and I had zero tolerance, and I was a scrapper, and I got a lot of disciplinary history for that. I spent most of my time on maximum security and close custody in Texas, which is the bottom of the barrel. They call it the dungeon. I didn't spend a lot of time on minimum security at all because once you get a certain amount of major disciplinary cases for different reasons, you're classified as a different type of offender, and they will not put you on minimum security anymore. So, but that was that's one side of my life. The other side of my life was I was hiding from the prison population that I was among, that I was really a nerd, and I was just reading all these books and taking notes, and in my free time and in the time in my cell, I was acquiring all this information, this data. So
That's awesome. Hey, where you was at, did you guys have the dog program where you would train the dogs?
The only dogs we ever saw were the ones that were trying to sniff the drugs out of ourselves.
Yeah, well, up here they had this program, like if you stayed out of trouble, you could train these dogs, and it was for like some adoption program where they would adopt them out. But some of the inmates were violating them dogs, man. There were some weird things going on in there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. We had the
Right.
same problem with chicken coops.
Oh man, I heard the cows too. Like the crazy stuff goes on in
Yeah,
prison.
man.
The average person couldn't even wrap their mind around, brother. But so let's get into this Phoenix phenomenon, this 138. And before we get into it, is it cool if I show you something real quick, Archaix?
Man, let's go shoot from the hip. That's the best way I like it.
All right, brother. Let me pull up my website.
Yeah, that 138 number is interesting, and I'm sure you've already heard people bring up the Misfits. I grew up on the Misfits, and they got the song "We Are 138."
Right.
Oh,
And I
didn't
always
know.
wondered if there was a connection to the music industry knowing about this event to take place.
Well, you might want to look into that because I'm getting a lot of emails from people, Doenut, they're sending me the lyrics to another song by a group called Phoenix, and the name of the song is 1901. And I just saw some of the lyrics this morning, and it's Phoenix related. I couldn't believe it. Talking about cycles and destruction and stuff like that. So
Wow.
you might want to do a show that just breaks down music and any references to the Phoenix that you find in music. That'd be a good show.
Well, the funny thing is that the Misfits, their fan club is called the Fiend Club. And I guess the Fiend is also connected to the Phoenix as well.
Yes, it is. Fiend it's the reverse of Knopf, which was the Egyptian phoenix. Yes, yeah. All the Greek titles for the gods and stuff and cities, they're the exact reverse of the Egyptian. Yeah, it's crazy.
So, okay, guys. So first of all, I put your newest videos in here, just to plug you. And this is my quote. So check this out, Archaix. Monkeypox, right? It happened on the 138th day of the year. That's what got me to start looking at the number. And USA tsunami is 138. And we keep getting hit with all this tsunami predictive programming. That new movie that came out, Knock at the Cabin, 38 minutes into it, a massive tsunami takes out the whole West Coast, Seattle area. I mean, a huge tsunami. It was in the Fifth Wave movie. They show it to us over and over. The West Coast gets hit by a tsunami, and New Atlantis is in that 138 cipher. And this is connected to that whole plasma apocalypse thing that Jay Dreams talks about. That's where I first seen you on a video with him, and you did an amazing job. But I seen a lot connected to the triple helix. I wrote a blog why I think that what's going on in the world today. Maybe they're trying to give people something inside them that stops, because people talk about, like, when this event happens, it activates your DNA. There's a lot of talk around that. But the 138 I found down here too, and I didn't do this part until yesterday. And you were talking about AIX, so I'm like, let me go see something. 138 year reset. AIX is also 1038, matching Agenda 21. Third World War, U.S. government, Artemis program. And the Artemis program is their new mission going to the moon. And Jay Dreams said the elites know all about the coming plasma apocalypse and intend to use the temporal rift, the portal opening, to escape this plane and their rockets. And that's what Project Bluebeam will be, to make us think they're fighting a war. But it's really the time they're able to get up out of here. And I've heard you say before too that you believe it's technology, right?
Well, technology is basically a frame of reference that the three of us, can sit here and understand. We all understand sophistication in technology, but what we're actually experiencing is like an amalgamation. It is a merging of spirit and matter. It is a technologically advanced scenario that goes beyond our ability and our present vocabulary to describe. So we have to use these frames of reference like technology. I've even described on my channel that what we experience, this alter reality that feels so real to us, what we're experiencing right now is so far beyond our capacity to describe as far as technological scenarios go, that we have to call it simulation theory for want of a better description. It's probably something far beyond a simulation. It's what I'm describing is a mini world situation where Tommy Truthful, where Doenut, where Jason, and everybody listening to our voices right now are actually participating in the generation of the very world we're living in now.
I agree with that. I definitely do. And I think, Jason, that's why the numbers line up, because we are in some type of a simulation.
I noticed your New Atlantis reference there. You know, Francis Bacon wrote a book called New Atlantis. It's coded. It's got codes all through it. He's basically describing his understanding that what Europeans were doing by going to North America was about to build a whole new civilization that was going to run the world for the next 4 centuries until it was destroyed, just like the ancient Atlantis was destroyed. But yeah, so Francis Bacon wrote that New Atlantis. So I find it interesting that equaled 138 as well. And you see, you just showed me where tsunami USA Tsunami also mentions 138. And I have that in my book, When the Sun Darkens, and in Nostradamus and the Planets of Apocalypse, that tsunamis will take out the coastal cities of the United States in the 138th year of this Phoenix timeline, which is 2040. And this is interesting because this 138-year timeline leading to 2040 is the exact year 1902 when the United States government very quietly removed the Phoenix from our national mint and our national seal and didn't publicize it to the people. They just quietly changed the Phoenix and turned it into a bald eagle. But on representations of the United States Great Seal prior to 1902, it's always the Phoenix.
Wow. Yeah, and the Phoenix, because I really like looking into the secret society's agendas and how they really manipulate world events and whatnot. In the 33rd degree, I heard in a video you were talking about how that's even connected to the Phoenix and America with the Phoenix and going back to Rome.
I was looking at a second edition. It was published in the 1890s, but the original was published in the 1880s, and it was Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. And the edition I had was leather bound. It was huge, and I wasn't really interested in the degrees and all the symbols. The only thing I'm interested in Freemasonry are the first 13 degrees, which are called the ancient rites. I don't care about I don't care about all the rest of them. It's those that are packed full of symbolism, because I have read the earlier Masonic documents called the Inigo Jones document and the Wood manuscript and the Masonic Constitution. These are 17th century documents that are purported to come from older sources, and they describe the Great Pyramid, they describe Enoch, they describe Abraham, they describe all these things that you can't find in any modern literature. I don't know how they knew these things, but and what the purpose and why the Great Pyramid was built. And I believe you can find these documents in PDFs online somewhere, especially the original 17th century Masonic Constitution. But as I was flipping through that book, I got curious. Okay, I just started flipping faster. Let me go see what he says about the 33rd degree. And I was shocked because he went into exquisite detail. An 800-page book went into a lot of detail for 32 degrees. But as soon as I opened it to the 33rd degree, all it had was the cover page. And it said 33rd degree. It showed a picture of the Phoenix, and there's no text.
Yeah, and because looking into all these symbols and how it's super ancient, I'm not really good at the chronology of stuff, but I love looking at the symbols. And so I'm going to say some words wrong, but the Hittites, I believe, also had the double-headed eagle. That, from what I've been looking into, is that where it's coming from the Hittites, and also the Adler, right? The German Adler could be going back to ATL, like ADL, like Atlantia.
They said Tartaria had it too, but then I watched Jason's video where he said the resets of Tartaria are very real, but not actual Tartaria. There's no evidence of it. it was just the Tartars, right, Jason?
Yeah, well, Tartary is actually on old maps as a huge geographical. It was never a nation. It is a huge geographical designation for a whole area of Central Asia all the way to Mongolia. And it's Tartary. It was just it was basically. Oh, I'll give you an example. In the world of Conan the Barbarian, the central city is Samarkand. Samarkand is a very real city in history, and the author of Conan the Barbarian was using very real geographical regions and cities and culture, and that's what makes Conan the Barbarian books so awesome when you're reading it. Tartaria was the same way. It was ancient geographers who had not actually gone out there to map anything. They're just putting maps together from what they're hearing by hearsay, because actually the lands out there were like Conan the Barbarian. They were too dangerous for outsiders. You didn't just go exploring. You did, and in the world of 500 years ago, in the past, 99% of the human race had not been farther than 4.5 miles away from the place they were born. I mean, this so people were a part of their geography. I mean, there were people who lived. There were whole generations that lived right there on the same barony that they were born into, and their grandparents were born into, and their great grandparents were born into, and they had never left. There was no reason to. So people were attached to properties, and this is where the elite got their basically their whole ideology that they own us, and this is why their stamps of ownership on the human race are found everywhere in company logos and in their little catchphrases and their commercials. I mean, you find them in Burger King and McDonald's commercials. They flaunt these things over us, knowing that most people have no idea what's really going on. But the ancient feudal mindset of the barons and the dukes and the lords and the monarchies owning the very people that live on their properties, that mindset is still alive and well today with the elite.
Yeah, and it seems like the people today, and maybe even throughout the history of the world, wanted their servitude. It seems like, with what we've seen over the last few years, servitude.
Doenut, you have to understand, when a population has never been given a scenario other than the one they've lived out their entire life, they will always choose a familiar over an unfamiliar.
Conan the Barbarian, that movie's dope. I never read the book, but I'll check that out. I'm a big fan of Jordan Maxwell. That's kind of like what really pushed me into research. And he always brought up that these movies like Indiana Jones and all this stuff, there's so much truths in these films as well. Like, they did the research. But he also talked about Zecharia Sitchin knowing a lot more than what he talked about. Now, do you think that was a lot of the events that you've talked about, that he just kept secret?
When it comes to Zecharia Sitchin, I would have to say that, as well read as he is, and by looking at his bibliography and seeing a lot of crossover between my own bibliographies, and he was way before me. So I'm going to have to say that he was aware of much of the research that I had read. And this is not good for Zecharia Sitchin, because on my own channel, I've had to openly be honest and say exactly what I found. And what I found are Sumerologists in the 1890s all the way to 1940s that had already published material that it was widely known that the shar was a unit of measurement. It was often attached to the idea of the turning of the stars, and that the shar never meant years. And these scholars even understood that the ancient Babylonians, 1,000 years after the Sumerian civilization had collapsed, they too made the same mistake. But Zecharia Sitchin should not have quoted them, because there were authors even as early as 500 BC who were already correcting the information and explaining that ancient calendars were day count systems and lunar count systems, and these big impossible numbers of the Anunnaki are not years. They can actually be abbreviated to periods of time that now put all of Anunnaki history right where it's supposed to be during the Sumerian period. But Zecharia Sitchin knew this. He knew this material was there, but it's deception by omission. Now, when it comes to Zecharia Sitchin, his archaeological research and much of his writings are fascinating. I'm going to tell you now, I enjoyed reading the Earth Chronicles. Yeah, I enjoy reading the Earth Chronicles, but you have to understand too, Jason of Archaix, Doenut, right here, Tommy Truthful, We don't have the backing of the Rockefellers. We don't have a bank account on the side that we can draw from, no questions asked, so we can travel around the world and see all these places and produce all these manuscripts and produce all these books. So when you find out that certain authors who have become very popular promoting a certain theory had access to Rothschild or Rockefeller or Bilderberg money, no questions asked, it makes you now understand that their output was specific for a reason. Now we understand why those mistakes crept into those books, all those impossible mythologies, because the best way to control the narrative going into the future is to make sure people don't understand the past.
So the omission part is part of the psychological operation in a sense, not bringing up certain things. And everything going on today with the whole UFO thing, which if you look back goes to this Rockefeller money and whatnot. Do you think that all of this, and also just the whole like LSD thing, I love reading old school Illuminati books, but like within 80% of it's all BS that you could just see, this is Rockefeller funded, they're pushing LSD and pushing all this stuff. Do you think that them pushing all the psychedelics right now, trending number one, big podcast, this is what they're talking about, is the UFO disclosure and the psychedelics. Do you think that they are trying to reset the central nervous system in a sense, so when these events do come to fruition, let's say, or they fake some Project Bluebeam thing? Just what is your thoughts on like all that, like the UFOs, Project Bluebeam, fake UFO disclosure stuff, or even real UFO stuff? What's your thoughts on that?
Listen, a lot of this, we have to go back to 1947 to a totally staged event in order to fully put the UFO phenomenon into its proper context. Now, on my own channel, I produce videos that show evidence that the entire alien UFO deal has been going back for thousands of years. However, there has been a cover story in place by a civilization that is in our underworld and has been operating out of our underworld for a very long time. And this cover story is that all phenomena that observers of UFO activity and these weird beings that dance, fairies that dance in cornfields and wheat fields and barley fields and make these crop circles, that they were called elves and trolls and bogies and hobwalkies and all kinds of things. But this cover story is to get people on the surface world to always look up. They wanted them to be star fairies and star gods. Now, in modern frames of reference, they want us to believe in ETs, UFOs, extraterrestrials. This is why the phenomenon of the ET has also evolved over the last 70 or 80 years. Meaning, the original idea was this stupid little saucer with this bubble on it with two ETs sitting side by side driving around through the atmosphere. But that we no longer apply that model because we understand that's 1940s, 50s primitivism. That was the technology of the time trying to impose an idea as to how this was possible. Now we have way more sophisticated ideas about extraterrestrial vehicles and all that. We even merged them with secret black ops military vehicles. But all this is by design. Every UFO incident that's been documented of people seeing UFOs in the sky, if the UFO ever approached the ground, they have been seen going in and out of bodies of water. So UFO activity has been seen even more by navies than anybody over land. And the perplexing deal is that there are authors from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that have put out books that have revealed that many UFO sightings were of glowing, like circular disc and cigar-shaped objects that basically tracked different naval vessels for a while, and they were glowing and they could be seen on radars, and they never came out of the water. So this, I believe, and I don't believe that extraterrestrials are coming in and out of our atmosphere. I don't believe we've ever been to the moon. I don't believe that any living organism can pass through the radon belt. I don't believe it's possible. The Russians didn't believe it's possible either, and that's why they've never done a lunar mission. They let the United States pull the wool over people's eyes about the deal because it was necessary. Because after Operation Fishbowl and all these other operations, the U.S. military was now seeing a bigger picture about this containment field that we're in. So it served the Russians not to oppose the American NASA space program. It served them because they too had a need to keep their people in the dark and to keep their people thinking that any UFO activity is from space, and that we're traveling to the moon, so therefore space is real as well. This is another tenet of the Archaix research. Being in a simulated holography, I do not believe that anything above the upper mesosphere is real. It's all a multi-tiered holographic overfield that allows us to see whatever phenomena we're expecting to see. So this is all. So this is my take. It's a part of simulation theory, and it answers for all the anomalies that we have detected throughout the history of the world. One of them being the Phoenix phenomenon. Because when I wrote the book that you have, Doenut, that book was written from the perspective of somebody who still believed in the Newtonian universe and that planets were revolving around a sun. That book was written. However, it doesn't change the Phoenix output. That output is still every 138 years. All the ancient records still remain true. All the artifacts still remain true. The translations to text, all the arithmetic still remains true, and all the prophecy still remains true. The only thing that's not true is that the Phoenix is not an intruder planet, because nothing in nature could ever come back every 138 years and do the things that it's done, and do it on May 15th every single time. Because in a real solar system, the gravitational nuances, the pull of different planets, these would always make a planet return on a different day. It would never come back on the same day. This Phoenix phenomenon is pure programming, and it is an object that is still there right now, but it is cloaked. It is hidden in the sky, and it only activates every 138 years, which is definitively connected to the very constant, the heartbeat of our reality that physicists call the fine structure constant.
Wow. Yeah, it's I think it's some type of technology. And you said before that they're working with some type of entities underground, right? It just reminds me of I included that in that blog I did about the 138 years. Let me show you this. I didn't go this far down, but in 1934, it was in mainstream news at that time that, let me show you, that they found these lizard catacombs under Los Angeles, and they allegedly went down there due to this cataclysm. They say it was like something that fell out of the sky and caught the whole West Coast on fire. But were you familiar with this, Jason?
I have never seen that before. I would be very interested in giving a once over.
Yeah, and it was actually in the Los Angeles Times. It was really in the newspaper. It blew my mind. Yeah, you can find the articles and everything. That's the only reason I shared it. I'm like, what the hell? This guy was trying to find gold down there.
Yeah.
So in the Hopi, I might be wrong on the Hopi. I forget what Indian First Nation people it was. Shout out to all my First Nation people. I love y'all. But it was some Indians that was working with these reptilian people that was underground, so they said, and they would come up and help them rebuild after these great reset events. So I just was wondering, I'm like, damn, that sounds a lot like what Jason talks about with the whole Phoenix thing. But I was just wondering if maybe you thought it was like some type of heart technology. They make it look like a invader planet when really.
I mean, we have to put this in its proper perspective as well. And what I mean is this phenomenon has been going on even when the surface world technologically had collapsed. I mean, I don't know if technology is going to be able to answer. I'm talking about an underground technology is going to be able to answer for what the Phoenix did in 3895 BC and what it did again in 2239 BC. I mean, we have records of absolute 100% total cataclysm collapse. Every single civilization in 2239 BC collapsed. Then we have the research of W.J. Perry, a historian in 1910 to 1928. He spent basically a quarter of his life documenting everything that he could find. This is a scholar, and he wrote a single book. And in that book, the book is 551 pages, and it's called Children of the Sun. And he wrote this huge book documenting all the collapse of all these dynasties, all the way around the world in a single day, all at the exact same time. And by his estimate, he said that his best guess was this occurred about 1688 BC. Well, 1688 BC as an approximate is actually a bullseye, because in 1687 BC, this is the ancient Archaean deluge that is famous in historical records. And Harold T. Wilkins in the 1950s, he wrote all about the Archaean deluge, because in his own research, he had determined that from all the fragments of legends and archaeological pictographs, everything that he has found, the 1687 BC Phoenix phenomenon, it appeared as a red star that just grew and got bigger and bigger and bigger until it dwarfed the moon. And by the time it dwarfed the moon, it seemed to sprout wings. But those were just flaming halos that started to surround the world. And earthquakes, rocks falling out the sky, it looked like it had two eyes. It was literally a terrible looking phoenix. And it totally destroyed the world, collapsed all civilizations, and it started a 25-year darkness. And these historians are quick to show the ancient Mesoamerican texts that refer to the exact same 25-year darkness in the Americas that happened to the Mediterranean world at the exact same time. So, yes, I believe it's technology, but it wouldn't be a technology that's being operated from the underworld.
Okay.
Because in my presentations, I believe that the civilization that's living in the underworld are the ones that basically control who we call the elite. The elite act as shepherds to keep the populations on the surface in control. The populations on the surface are still needed. They don't want to wipe us out because we are a source of fresh blood. We are a source of inventions. We're a source of innovations because they've stagnated. They have very old and ancient technologies, but they upgrade them with new things that are discovered and made and invented right here on the surface. This is what patent offices are about. They take and apply many inventions, and the inventors are ruined, like Tesla and Reichenbach and these famous inventors that come up with these awesome things. Their lives are ruined, but all their technology is taken into the underworld. This explains why after Phoenix resets, we have this explosion of technology and inventions and new translations to old text and new companies. They just suddenly appear in 1764, a Phoenix year, 138 years later in 1902. I've done 5 videos on 1902 explaining how unusual this was. And the only explanation I can come up with is that there were people hiding in the underworld thinking 1902 was going to be the big one, but it wasn't. There was Phoenix fallout all over the world, but it wasn't bad.
4 years after that, we had the San Francisco earthquake.
Yes, we did. And I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. Well, I'm going to tell you now, there's been several incidents in the historical record that 4 to 6 years after a Phoenix year, there are some pretty terrible, like after following events. But the Justinian plague is another one. The Phoenix phenomenon in 522, from which we got the Anno Domini calendar, started a great 25-year darkness that lasted all the way to 1538. That entire period is riddled with cataclysmic stuff all the way through it. I have videos about that too. But the Phoenix phenomenon happens, and there always does seem to be some residual stuff happening in the following years.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. The other question I wanted to ask you before I forget, it seems like they were hiding the information about giants. And, Jay Dream says that it was because when the vapor canopy was there was more oxygen so they could grow bigger. And I know, is that where it comes from? In the whole Genesis, it says they were mixing with the fallen angels, but maybe that was just what the Anunnaki were called. I don't know.
Yeah, it does get confusing. It does get confusing, and that's because who transmitted this information to us. So
right.
The original scenario, Jay Dreamers, is correct. under the vapor canopy, which has been replicated by a few different people around the world, especially here in Texas. At Glen Rose Dinosaur Park in Texas is a creation museum, and they have a hyperbaric chamber. It's 60 feet long, and they created a vapor canopy, and they increased the atmospheric pressure, and they took out all sunlight, and they had only an ultraviolet light that would be seen through the vapor canopy, and they increased the oxygen, and instantly all the fruit flies, the crickets, the earthworms, everything grew 3 to 5 times larger. So they know that what's being described in the ancient world is real. So the vapor canopy would increase atmospheric pressure. And then because of the increase of atmospheric pressure and because of this ambient light, they've already proven it, that plants, even hydroponics, like if you're growing your own weed, it grows way better under a dark light than it does solar light. So under this vapor canopy, you would have these lush tropical jungles popping up everywhere and very fast, which is going to increase the oxygen 100-fold. And when humans are in this environment, it's going to activate new genetic sequences within their DNA that allow them to intake more air, which allows them to hold their breath for a lot longer, which now makes sense of some of the archaeological discoveries that anthropologists have never been able to make sense of, such as the fact there are certain clams and certain oysters that are only found at certain depths in the ocean, and they've never been able to figure out how these 4,000 and 5,000 year old clam middens have been found. They just dig in the dirt and they find a clam midden, and they research it, and they find human waste, and they find chiseled stones, chiseled wood that humans had, and they might find a bead necklace, and they realize, okay, well, all this is dated, and they date the charcoal. This is only 5,500 years ago. So how in the hell did they swim down 300-foot depth without dying and harvest these and do it so much that they were making a living doing it? It wasn't an anomaly. They actually lived like this. So they were taking the pearls, and they were eating the clams, the oysters. But it's not possible. Humans can't do this today. The pressure alone, you just can't do it. So you can do it with the right equipment, but you can't do it butt naked like they were. And this is because the atmospheric pressure was so different that when they got in the water, it was actually a relieving of the pressure. Water even behaved very differently. It was more like a gas under the vapor canopy and not a thing. You could sink a whole lot faster. You could move.
So it's like always a mist in the atmosphere, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what Genesis describes. Genesis does describe that in the beginning that there was no rain, and that there was a firmament above, and the firmament is like a hammered bracelet, but it's made of water. And every morning and every evening, there was a mist and a dew that watered the whole landscape, but there was never rain. This is the importance in the book of Genesis of the story of the rainbow. This is why the rainbow only appeared after the vapor canopy collapsed, which in ancient records is the day the sky fell, which in the Jewish Judeo-Christian world is the Great Flood. It's all the same event. But when you look at the ancient records and refer to them as to what happened, and you look at the Phoenix phenomenon 138-year resets, you find out that event just happened to be one of the worst Phoenix cataclysms there was. So Phoenix is not mentioned in any of these traditions and legends, and that right there is a clue to me that there has been a lot of censorship and for a very long time.
That's what I was asking, if the cover up of the Giants was more so to suppress this event, because
hey, you got to understand, guys. I apologize, but you ask me questions, I hit those tangents. I just go in another area sometimes.
Oh, I love it.
Hey, let me answer your Giants question. All right. Now we're back on Giants. The vapor canopy is the reason why humans were growing to astonishing sizes. Now, they did not refer to themselves as giants. They wouldn't have. Just like all three of us would not consider ourselves as giants, but if a new ecosphere in a new environment was to impose itself upon our reality next week, and all of a sudden humans started being born faster, growing faster, but they only grew 3 feet high, we wouldn't consider ourselves as titans, but they would look at us as like we were. This is the situation we have with the ancient world. Those who lived under the vapor canopy were titanic in size. They were titans. When the vapor canopy collapsed, their offspring were gigantic, but they weren't titans. You understand?
Yes,
After
sir.
the vapor came, this is when all the sun calendars began. All these ancient calendars that start mentioning the sun, this is why the sun is the very last god to enter the Sumerian pantheon. This is why the sun, Horus, is the last god to enter into the Egyptian pantheon. All the other Egyptian and Sumerian gods are ancient. In Babylon, all the gods are ancient, but the sun suddenly appears and they got to give him a name. They call him Shamash. So in Sumer, he's Utu. And later on, in Akkad, they combined him as Utu Shamash, but it was the sun, the very last god to enter the pantheon. The reason the sun is the last to enter the pantheon is because during the vapor canopy period, it was all goddess venerating cultures. It was all goddess venerating. It was a matriarchal society. Women were in control. They held the power, the political powers. They had we're not talking about totems or societies. You can get the idea of people being primitive before the cataclysm out of your mind, because by all the evidence we find from the Sanskrit and the earlier Sumerian text, these people were technologically advanced. They lived a sedentary life. They had already evolved far beyond the need to wage war. They had technologies that were absolutely fascinating, and that's why after the cataclysm, after the collapse, all knowledge was then recorded on stone tablets, because they got the idea from the earlier civilization that recorded everything on technologically advanced tablets. There's many different ways to convey information, and to make a stone tablet, which is heavy as hell, and you got to cook it and glaze it, and first you got to write it to it. It's very difficult, but to them, they were actually applying the principles of sympathetic magic, because they believed if they continued to write knowledge on tablets, just like their stories about the tablets of destinies of the gods, because the gods had a tablet in their hand that they kept in a little bag, and when they pulled that tablet out, everybody had to back up. They couldn't interfere, and that god, that Anuna, you call him an Anunnaki, whatever, would do things with that tablet. And this is why it was the tablet of destinies. They moved hardware, made machines do things. They had their own Bluetooth, their own Wi-Fi. They communicated long distances from each other, and every bit of this was amazing to the Sumerians, because the Sumerians were not the Anuna. The Sumerians were the black-headed people. This is what they called themselves. And they regarded the Anuna, who were bearded and tall and of very pale, like gemstone eyes, alabaster skin. Later on, they were conveyed as if they had blue skin, but this is coming from a Neolithic people with black hair, black eyes, long straight hair, and they regarded these people as gods because of the state of their technology. And after the cataclysm, these people wanted to emulate the gods, but they didn't have the infrastructure. So that's why we found over 500,000 cuneiform texts in logograms in cuneiform, Sumerian, Akkadian, Rashamric, Babylonian, and it's all in tablets found from Ur and Ugarit and Nimrud and Nineveh. All throughout Assyria, we have found stone tablets simply because the ancients knew the gods recorded their information on tablets as well.
That's that purse they had, right, Jason? The purse the Anunnaki had?
Yeah, that was just holding a technologically advanced device, no different than our cell phones now.
Wow.
This was the tablet of destinies to the ancient world. Remember, in the eschatology, we are given patterns. Eschatology is very interesting because it's prophecies that are supporting a fact, and that fact is what is being predicted has already happened before. So in eschatology, here we have phones today. It's nothing, but in the eschatological paradigm, we are told that in the last days shall be like the days of Noah. So what we're experiencing today with technologically advanced civilizations and aerial aircraft and submarines, and a problem between the surface world and the underworld controllers, everything is happening all over again. We are heading toward, in the simulation, we are heading toward an apocalypse and a tribulation, an unveiling and a judgment and a reset. We're heading forward into the very thing that ancient times a technologically advanced civilization was also heading toward. We are heading toward the exact cataclysm that ended their civilization. We're in a loop. This is what my channel is about, showing that the entire historical record is basically like a computerized template of events that humanity has gone through multiple times. And at the end of each revolving, at the end of each prophecy cycle, where all these calendars become complete, there is a small window of opportunity where a lot of people who have actually matured, who have actually realized the world for what it is, it's time for them to go. This construct cannot operate with those who have awakened. At the end of this cycle, they're ejected because they're going to contaminate the program. This is a loop we're in, and this loop is basically what all the religions of the ancient world were trying to describe. And the giants,
all of us will be shot up out of here. Me, you, and Doenut, right? We're up out of here.
Yeah, listen, I don't believe it's something that you can strive for. I think it's something that you're just going to be. I believe that the recognition of a phenomenon absolutely makes you a participant. This is another fundamental tenet of my channel. I try to tell people all the time. I reveal some very harrowing shit. But at the same time, I'm always explaining to people that what you fear, you participate in. Yep. So you must look at these things objectively. So if you objectively look at things that are negative without the emotional investment, you're not going to participate them. Reality will always commiserate. It will reflect back to you as circumstances the very things that you expect to happen. Therefore, you need to be aware of what the collective is going to go through, but on your own personal path, you want to be the one that gets ejected. So that's what you think about. What's this next world going to be like? Because you're not going to be the same. All your memories are going to be returned to you for every life sim that you've lived in this entire loop that you've been here. But once you finally wake up and make the recognition that, look, man, I don't belong here, then you have basically accepted the tenets of ancient religions, which teach you that you're a pilgrim. They teach you that you're a passerby. They teach you that you're on a path, that this world is not the destination. All these ideas are found in ancient religions. They've just been masked, and all these cultural attachments have been added to them to where these people now have faith in all these things that just have no substance whatsoever. The idea, the common denominator between all these faiths is that you're a journeyman. You're not here to build. You're here to learn and pass through. And once somebody has basically surrendered to that, and you realize, damn, man, this has been a hell of a learning experience. I can't wait to see everything that I remember from all my past lifetimes. You're no longer of service to the simulacrum. You're no longer of service to AIX. Now you're a problem, because it only has a finite amount of energy to control the collective. So any errants that are in the system are ejected. And this is what you need to do. You need to regard yourself as basically a malfunction in a system of controlled chaos. Once you hold yourself as a malfunction and that you are not conforming to anything around you, the system will eject you. You're not going to loop back in. You're going to be gone. And right now it's going to quarantine personalities to the side, and we see pictures of this in the Bible. And there are actual imagery, like in the Apocalypse in the book of Revelation, of giant altars that God can see into and see all the souls that have already been ejected, and they're waiting. Hey man, when are you going to open this door so we can go? I mean, these conversations are found in the book of Revelation. So nothing on Matrix. Yeah, man, it's people have been doing this for a very long time, way before I was born, and people have understood this. But the elite have accepted a different role. Here's the situation. The elite do what they do for the simple fact is they knew we were in a construct a very long time ago. And I believe that many of them were benefactors and decided to help humanity, but they've already moved on. And they're the ones that left us all this information to find. They're gone though. But the ones that stayed behind, the ones that are nefarious, these elite in the underworld, that are controlling everything. They go to the underground facilities. And because I'm telling you now, Bill Gates is not a member of the elite. He's a puppet. Elon Musk is not a member of the elite. He's a puppet. Bezos is not a member of the elite. He's a puppet. The elite are unknown. We've never seen their faces. They do not come to the surface.
None of the presidents, they're puppets still.
Yeah, they're all puppets. Yeah, every one of them. So what we have here is a situation of a race of people who have basically signed the contract. They have decided, okay, look, we understand this is a construct, but in order for us to benefit, if we've already decided that we're going to stay here. We don't want to get ejected. We want to go ahead and benefit, and the only way they can benefit is to help the artificial intelligence system that controls this construct to control the people. Because the more people that are corralled into belief systems and political duality, the less energy the AI needs to expend in trying to control them. That's what it's all about. You understand, every technology system, no matter how sophisticated, is still subject to the laws of diminishing returns. It is still subject to the law of conservation of energy. And because these two laws right here make every artificial intelligence system have to rely on subordinates to help it with its control systems. That's who the elite are.
Wow. That's interesting. Dude, you got a lot. You got a lot of knowledge, Jason. And we got 894 people in here from all three of our platforms.
Yeah, make sure you smash that like button.
Like only 240 y'all hit the like.
That like button, guys.
It's
hit
free,
the like
guys.
button.
It doesn't charge your debit card.
You know what's interesting is that we got all these purple lights popping up all over the world, right? In America, at least, and they're the defect. And speaking about how that makes plants grow in the vapor canopy, like sometimes I live in Arizona and I feel like I get vision sometimes because it's a hot desert. And sometimes I'll ride a bike and I just have a feeling that this place is going to be a jungle one day, empty jungle. And I've always thought this riding bicycle around before I knew about Phoenix event. This was like probably 10 years ago or whatever. And the purple lights popping up everywhere. If there was a vapor canopy, not that if there was or whatever, like a vapor canopy, would technology work like purple lights, the street lights? Would that help grow, or would it be blackout?
Well, I mean, we have to answer that question by what we know today, and we know today that we can put violet lights in our little shed in the backyard, and whatever's growing in that shed is going to grow. If there's toadstools in that area, they're going to grow to huge sizes. If there's grass in there, they're not going to need sunlight. They're going to grow in the bottom of the shed. It's if you put that dark light, for some reason plants respond way better to the dark light than they do sunlight. And this, what you're describing to me, I've seen some emails recently. I'll go through all my emails. People were telling me the same thing you just described. I have not seen any pictures of this, but I would not be surprised if the beginnings of a vapor canopy are not already beginning to take place. But there has to be a catalyst. Let me explain. Vapor canopies appeared in 3895 BC and another one in 2295 BC with the collapse of the with the fall of the sky. It tried to come back but couldn't. It did come back for 25 years in 1687 BC, which is the Ogygian deluge. Now, I know this is a lot to take in because you guys haven't seen all the sources, but I got whole videos that cover all this. The vapor canopy did come back again in 522 AD, all the way to the Justinian plagues. Now, it didn't last, though. Each time it tries to make a comeback, it only lasts for about 24 to 25 years, but it's well documented all around the world. But there's only one way a vapor canopy can come and remain intact for a long period of time, and I mean centuries, and that is if there is sufficient volcanism on the surface to where volcanic ash is layering the bottom of the mesosphere, because the mesosphere is a thick area of the atmosphere that is nothing but suspended water droplets, and it will hold that volcanic ash. At the same time that's happening, the upper mesosphere is blanketed like it was in 1902 with hundreds of billions of tons of this fine red dust that comes off of Phoenix. So every time Phoenix appears, it basically baptizes the entire world in this red dust. And if it's real humid in certain areas, it falls out of the sky as red mud. In 1902, it was so bad all around the world that some ship captains even entered it into their manifests that they had to have all hands on deck just to push the mud off the ships before their ships capsized. It just fell all over the world. There are people that are reporting all over Australia that they got whole layers of this red dust that's out of place right there on their topsoil, all over Australia, all over Africa. So if these two things happen at the same time, which happens every 138 years, the Phoenix phenomenon, the red dust, but if Phoenix invokes volcanism, then you're going to get a vapor canopy, and it's going to appear very fast. Look at 1883 Krakatoa. Very quickly, one volcano darkened about 1/4 of the world by basically just making the whole atmosphere dense with pumice and ash. So if one volcano can do that much, and for about a 2-year period, and create the scenario of a year without a summer, imagine what 100 volcanoes can do in a 2-week period.
Like if Yellowstone blows up. Hey, Doenut, you want me to add your screen?
Oh, I was just going through just I guess sort of towards the end or whenever that is, but I'm always looking into the elites, the names. Like for example, you got U2, the art group that likes to go bow down to the Queen, open up Biden's thing, but it's very similar to Utu, right? Utu, and they developed. You're talking about the tablet. The iPod had the U2 on there. This new technology that's being released to the humans, and Elon, right, has L in it. Elon. You look into what Elon. So all these people on the world stage seem to tie into ancient gods. The names sound familiar a little bit. Like there's a town, or not a town, but a civilization of media, right? And then we have media today. Mm-hmm. And the king of media is Rupert Murdoch, right? Which sounds a lot like Marduk, in my opinion, just looking at it. Marduk, the king of media. And so I'm always looking back to, are they just naming these names of the gods? And you bring up the calendar, the Anu Adani. I'm saying it wrong, but is the Anu Dani connected to like Anunnaki in a sense? The way it's spelled, it's ANNO, but also I seen it spelled ANNU.
The calendar that the entire world is under right now is an AD-BC calendar. That AD calendar is Anno Domini. That is, and it means year of the Lord. That's the calendar we're under right now. But you're absolutely correct. On the modern practice of applying ancient names and ancient syllables and similes is because there is an exchange of information between anything that you recognize from the ancient world. When you live in a hologram, then there's really no separation from the past and the present when it concerns energies. So when somebody today wants to tap into ancient energies, they can easily do so when they use the right syllables, and all they have to do is basically inform the neutral field around them what their intent is. So this is another teaching on my channel, that each one of us, we have an informed field, and that informed field, it contains every piece of data, information, belief, criticism, every single thing you have ever experienced in your entire life, you carry with you at every moment. So when two people come together, it's a lot more than just a conversation. There's an exchange of energy. There's a dynamic where two people are communicating on two different levels. This is where attraction comes from. This is where we get that intuition that we don't like this guy. There's an exchange here. Now, this exchange is a beautiful thing, but can also be weaponized. And what I mean is if you know definitively, like a 14th century grimoire, and you get a hold of some of the data that's in a 14th century grimoire, if you perform that ritual in that grimoire just like it says in that book, and it's going to be as effective as it was for the people in the 12th, 13th, and 14th century who were practicing that, then that exchange of energy is going to pass through time from them to you right now, and you're going to experience exactly what it is you expected to experience. This is what makes sorcery, alchemy, witchcraft. Every bit of this is real. There is nothing in a simulated context. Every bit of this is just par for the course. There's nothing even supernatural about it. This is the exchange of energies in a neutral field. But the catalyst is always the individual. It is the syncing and interaction of the individual informed field with the neutral field of our environment that allows these things to happen. That's why belief is dangerous. And this is why I was just telling you a minute ago that, listen, you need to be aware of what's going to unfold in the future, but you can't fear it, because what you fear you participate in. I can't stress that enough.
I really liked your dungeon programming video. That was really cool that you did recently.
Your little office right there is pretty fire too. And I seen your new studio, you and your boy. Is he Irish?
No, he
looks Irish to me with that.
I don't know. He likes that mustache. He works that mustache to me.
Yeah, cool, I'm not. Man.
Yeah, he's good people, man. He's a vet. He went in for full lifetime military career, but he got blew up twice, and the second time he just had enough.
Oh wow!
In the military, his specific job was before the convoy set out. He was the guy that was out there making sure that the road didn't have any IEDs in it.
Man. Yeah, well, thank you for your service. I'm sure you'll hear this.
He'll watch this later. But yeah, the first time he was shielded quite a bit because those guys are outfitted really well. But the second time he wasn't on duty. He wasn't doing his job. Somebody else was doing the job, and he was in a vehicle that got blew up.
Now, with the whole belief system, kind of going back to that, is a lot of stuff that you talked about really fascinated me. Because I was raised at the Jewish temples, like the Orthodox ones with the rabbis with the hats and all that. And you brought up the angel of death, and it's something I heard as a kid. But going into the Gemara and Rashi, which I never knew about until listening to your videos, that the angel of death appears every 138 years. And I remember hearing that as a kid, the same way that Jordan Maxwell would talk about the Elohim. And I found a weird thing. There was a serial killer called the Angel of Death who killed 138 children.
Damn. I never heard that one.
Yeah, you can bring up the article if you like, Tommy. I got it.
Yeah, bring that up. His name was the Angel of Death. Angel of Death equals 51 in numerology, gematria, because that was connected to Dahmer, remember?
Right.
The Dahmer decode we did, and the Illuminati was formed on 5/1 Beltane, 1766.
What I was trying to get with the belief system is that even being born into a religion, I could see the imprinting it had on me and the beliefs of that. So speaking of the whole belief system with religion, and also going back to these people naming different gods, I forget what I was trying to say, but here's the angel of death.
No naked pictures, Doenut.
No. But look, it was proven 138 children were murdered, and they named her the angel of death. And this angel of death character. Look, I pulled up all this stuff, just a bunch of questions to
When
ask.
did you find that, Doenut? Last night?
Yeah. But like
138 shit, man. And sometimes Archaix, they love to do like scripted events on the world stage where they'll have little things like that. Hey, I'm not saying that's one of them, but it's definitely very interesting. And remember the 2012 Olympics? 2012, they said the world's going to end. Then in the Olympics, we had that giant phoenix rising at the end. Remember?
Yeah, I saw that video. Yeah.
And it predicted the whole thing with the code red, what we've been on lockdown for quite some time now.
Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. Okay, I even wrote it down. So like it actually came from my friend. Here's like some questions I wrote down.
He's a huge fan of yours.
Yeah, my friend, he loves you. He said, ask him the God of Exodus. So if I follow let's say the Torah, it's like I'm making a pact with God. Would I be like awarded more worldly success in a sense?
You talking about, okay, the pact with God? Okay, yes, there are two different covenants in the Old Testament. There are 100% two different covenants. One of them is in Genesis and is very different than the one in Exodus. The one in Exodus is definitely a servitude and rewards punishment based system. And yes, if you were to follow that one, you would certainly reap those benefits. And there is a culture of people in this world who have done that, and they're running everything now.
Sure.
Right. Yeah,
Very
it's interesting. Yeah, so I brought up a lot of stuff
How do
right
you
here.
feel about religion, Jason? I think it's all a control system, but I have a relationship with source consciousness, a creator. But I think organized religion is, oh, what do you call them? You call the source consciousness something very interesting.
Oversoul.
Yeah, I like that. The
Oversoul.
oversoul. But you're
Yeah,
not
it's
organized.
not unique. It's not unique to you and I. I mean, more and more people are starting to understand there is a vast difference between spirituality and religiosity. I mean, the separation is dividing more and more every single day. It's going to come to a critical mass, and the critical mass is the fact is that state-sponsored religion is coming back on the table, especially here in America, and it's coming back strong, and it's not going to be good for a lot of people. There's going to be, it's already starting to happen where church and state are marrying. They're going to be, it's two different control systems that are basically merging together on the conservative side as the liberals and the socialists are collapsing as we speak.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, what got me into like believing in God again, because like I was raised, you know, Jewish, had the bar mitzvah. Then I was like, okay, I'm a man now. And I seriously got into addiction and all that. You know, big knucklehead is what my friend's dad used to call me. And it wasn't until I got sober that I started having a relationship with God, in a sense, like praying, that
Right.
my whole life changed. Like the beliefs I really had these at first, like I had a little bit of belief, but not really. But by praying, my whole world changed internally. So it's just very interesting hearing
Well,
about all that.
I will say this, Donut. It doesn't matter if you were Southern Baptist or Presbyterian. It doesn't matter if you're Hasidic Jew, Sephardic. It wouldn't even matter if you're Ashkenazi. When it comes to relationship with the oversoul, the only thing that matters is you personally. And every description about you is nothing but dressing that doesn't even address exactly who you are. These are just attachments on the avatar. What's inside the avatar and what that personality is doing with the variables that it's been given in this life is all that matters. So I don't even refer to myself as Southern Baptist anymore. I tell people that's what I used to be. I don't even call myself a Christian anymore today. But anybody who was to basically measure the rhythm of my ways would automatically assume I was a Christian. So these are just attachments to our avatars. Our actual day-to-day existence of who we truly are, our personalities are far more complex than the Presbyterian or the Jewish dressing that we might put upon ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. My mom's Christian, but I found God through Islam actually, and a lot of my people don't even know that. But then I found out all three of them are worshiping this black cube. It's connected to Saturn, and I'm like, man, I'm just gonna have my own relationship with the Creator. I'm not getting into all this organized religion shit because they want Christians to fight with Muslims, Christians to fight with Jewish people, and you know it's so stupid. It's divide and conquer when really we all need to come together. You know what I'm saying?
There it is right there. That's the Phoenix phenomenon, Revelation chapter 6.
Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought it was 811 talking about like wormwood.
No, that's Nemesis X object. It's a totally different. It's a totally different object. But I've also have full chronologies, charts, timelines, and books published about that as well. It's never been my focus because the Phoenix is coming first. Once the Phoenix phenomenon occurs on schedule in the month of May of 2040, then people will wake up real fast about what's coming 6.5 years later.
Now, you right here, this is how you started off your book, I believe. I forget though, but it starts off with this, which is the Phoenix event. and people hid themselves in dens in the rocks of the mountains. And we see, like, let's say, for example, like Freemasons go underneath the caves to get the knowledge of Quetzalcoatl, in a sense, right? The occult knowledge. And that's sort of like a phoenix, Quetzalcoatl.
Right.
And here in Arizona, we got the Thunderbird right here. I mean, Thunderbird. Right. I also want to ask you about the Hollywood rituals, but just looking at how these people go underneath ground in these caves to protect themselves.
Well, look, it didn't just say listen, the word den, you saw the word den. They hide in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains of all that. That word den right there.
Yes.
Well, you know a lot of times these a single word in scripture will have multiple applications. A den is nothing but a place to occupy. Therefore, that could be an underground city. It could be a series of cities. It could be underground galleries of rock, a whole fortress underground. It could be anything. But you notice the prophecy here does not just say they hid in the caves or they hid in the rocks of the mountains. It specifically gave you two options. One is the dens and one is the rocks of the mountains. So it's really describing anything underground.
Oh, okay. So, for example, when the Phoenix event happens, it seems like from listening to your videos that the axis mundi would be in the Middle East in a sense, and everything will be spiraling around it.
Absolutely.
Where like I'm in America and I'm gonna stay in America. Maybe that's a bad idea, but do you think people do survive that are above ground?
Of course. I mean, the survival rate's going to be 75%. It's even mentioned in Revelation in chapter 6. And one of the final statements is that all these events of the seals will take the life of 1/4 of the entire world. So this if 1/4 of the entire world dies from this pole shift phenomenon, that means there's 75% survivability. However, as I've shown in my research, this is not evenly distributed. The Asia is about to take the most of that 75%. So if the death toll in China, Mongolia, Laos, Vietnam, if the Oriental nations are going to take this Phoenix event the worst, if they're the ones going to do it, if 75% of the world survives, then it's probably going to be a very low death toll for the United States, for Canada, Mexico, Central America. I can't say the same thing about South America and anything south of the equator. The reason is there's a 30-degree shift. That 30-degree shift is very dangerous because of bodies of water. They are not able to keep up with the shift on the land. And because this is a temporal shift and not a permanent one, the permanent one is 6.5 years later with Nemesis X. Now, all this is perfectly described by Nostradamus, and I show that research as well. But the first one is temporary. The sky is going to roll like a scroll. But a scroll only rolls out, then you roll it back in. It's gonna stabilize, but only after massive destruction to the worldwide infrastructure takes place. So the death toll, we're talking about probably 75% of everybody who dies will be in the Orient. But that actually because only 25% of the world's population is going to perish in this event, that basically means the rest of the world is not going to have a high death toll at all.
And this was also written about these Fortean phenomenons. I love the phenomenons, and I like to get as weird as possible in my head. But it was written also in the bamboo scrolls as well.
Yes, it was. The Chinese silk almanacs, the turtle shell almanacs. The Phoenix phenomenon has been recorded. The one you're referring to now in the ancient Chinese text was the 1688. That's how they dated it. It was 1 year off, just like W.J. Perry when he published his book about the collapse of all Bronze Age civilizations being in 1688. That's also the exact year provided in the Chinese almanacs and stuff. But the actual date was 1687 BC in the month of May. But it's mentioned. No, these are just a few. We have the Archaix record. Archaix predicted it. Thales of Miletus predicted. As a matter of fact, in 583 BC, two different nations, the Medes and the Lydians, met for war. After 5 years of warfare, they decided to end it. And they both they're two empires. They both bought all their armies, all their subservient nations. They met on the field of battle. And then right when they're about to fight, the sun darkened, but it wasn't the moon. It is recorded in the records of Herodotus of Halicarnassus. And he describes this whole event. And Herodotus and Pliny and Strabo and Seneca and Diodorus Siculus, they describe eclipses. They're not even a mystery. By this time in history, they were not a mystery. Everybody understood how eclipses worked. They just couldn't predict them. But Thales of Miletus was a Phoenician by remote descent. He was descended from the very Danon that also predicted the darkening of the sun in 1135 BC. He was descended from Sanchoniathon. He was descended from the very people in Canaan, the Amuru, who predicted it in 1687 BC. Yeah, in the book of Jasher, the 1687 BC sun darkening is mentioned there as well. It's mentioned twice. It's mentioned twice. Once when the Israelites were fighting the local Canaanites after they had abducted Dinah, one of their sisters, and the seven armies of Canaan were defeated, not by the Israelites because they were a very small group at the time. They were defeated because Jacob predicted the darkening of the sun, and rocks fell out of the sky, and there was a mighty earthquake, and the Canaanites panicked. And while they were panicking, the Israelites killed them. So, yeah, these predictions have happened over and over and over throughout history. They are not the anomalies; they're the norm. It's just the only anomaly here is that this is not taught in school. You're not going to find any of this. You have to actually go into the historical records, and you got to see these things for yourself and document them and lay them all out. Look at the dates. All these independent researchers affixed to all this phenomena, and it's going to blow your mind because you're on paper. You're going to have a timeline of events that happen every 138 years.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome. And it's really cool because you're bringing this knowledge. There's a lot of YouTube channels like me. A lot of times I'm just repeating old information but you're bringing like brand new information to the table, and really, really awesome. I got another weird question, but I could wait until the end if Tommy has something to say.
Oh, I do got something to show you guys real quick. And before I forget, Jason, was the Carrington event connected to anything, bud?
Well, that was 1859. It was not the Phoenix phenomenon. However, it is certainly unusual. I don't believe in X-flare activity. I had Ben Davidson on my channel, Suspicious Observers. He's a real astronomer, scientific background. I honor him for his beliefs and his education. I just don't believe any of it, and I even inferred that in the video.
The solar flares?
I don't believe the solar flare, all that scientific stuff. No, I don't believe any of that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Our sun has all the properties of being a very local phenomenon. Our sun is an anomaly, and the things that have been recorded about the sun, if they were true, means it's impossible for the sun to zigzag in the sky, for the sun to recede to being a tiny dot and then coming back to its original side, for the sun to split in half and become two smaller suns and then coalesce back into the sun that we know, for the sun to change colors. We have historical documents for all these things that were observed and seen. I just recently released a video. Matter of fact, my very last video on the Phoenix was about this highly localized phenomena. The very fact that a whole population of a city can see something, but a city 40 miles away didn't see anything like that. They didn't see great dark clouds. The sun didn't darken. The sun didn't zigzag in the sky. There wasn't red mud falling all over. There wasn't an earthquake 20 miles away. None of it was documented or observed. But people who visit the cities in the 1800s where that happened saw the destruction, saw the red sand and the red mud, talked to the people that were there, and everybody was baffled, thinking the whole world experienced these things when it was only their city. So the Phoenix phenomenon is highly localized. It can actually create a bubble of phenomena where those on the outside have absolutely no idea that people on the inside are going through some shit. So this is technology. This is technology that's far more advanced than anything that we are able to replicate today, even with our VR. Our VR technology today isn't even on this level, but it does give us an approximate as to how to imagine the sophistication of what it is we're experiencing. So we're not here to do away with this system. That's not my message. We're not here to even figure it out. We're here to wake up. And once we wake up, that's basically how we get ejected out of the system. We're not wanted here no more. Because every life sim that we live for here on out, it's going to be a very easy for us to wake back up again. Because once you waken up, there's no going back to sleep.
Yeah, that's it. Let me show you guys this real quick. I just was looking at some numerology. Okay, so 3/11, the whole pandemic thing pops off. We know that was Fukushima happened that day. So I ran from that date to 5/15 of 2040,
Mm-hmm.
and I got 20 years, 2 months, and 4 days, which is 224.
Okay.
Okay, 224 is the value of Corona. You know what I'm saying? And Corona is the outermost part of the sun's atmosphere during an eclipse. I wonder if this is like some drill for this event to see how we react. You know what I mean, Jay?
I do. I know that 224 number.
We have the Great American Eclipse in 2024 too, brother. On 4/8.
Okay.
That's when Jay Dreams thinks it's going to happen. So I like Jay, but I think your stuff's like the way you connect it with the numbers and the timelines. I just think it's so on point. So there's a little difference there when you talked to Jay before. Um, does he believe it's going to happen December 21st of 2024 still? Is that still his theory, or has he evolved that theory?
I don't know. I don't. I've never gone into specific. There's a lot of differences between his Phoenix phenomenon model and, his plasma apocalypse model and the Phoenix phenomenon. And I have done a show with him, and I showed a chart because a conversation with him actually led to a very significant discovery, one that I had not even thought of before. So I drew a new chart and I showed it on his channel in a podcast, and I thanked him because he inspired that cognitive leap. And I have told him very specifically that what he has documented perfectly answers for 4 of the Phoenix phenomenon events that happened in the ancient past. But it doesn't answer for all the lesser regional and hemispheric ones that happen, because what he described is so all-encompassing, worldwide, and totally reset catastrophic that it's a total restart everywhere, involving everybody, with only a few survivors, with people falling up into the sky. And his model does answer for 4 of them, but not all the other ones.
Right. Maybe more of the nemesis or more of the big one, because there could be different levels of the Phoenix too, right?
Yes, sir. Precise, exact. There's 100% evidence that it's not every 138 years it can activate, but we don't have every 138 years, because there's editing involved and there's censorship involved. The very fact that I've been able to uncover so much, and people email me with all the microfiche from their own communities that I didn't have access to, that comports with what I'm telling you about different years, is fascinating. But the truth is if there was no censorship involved and there wasn't an active body in this world trying to eliminate this knowledge and this data, then we would have whole encyclopedias full of all the different civilizations that met their end every 138 years.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Your guys' show together was phenomenal, bro. I think you did amazing job with that show. But Jay Dreams, well, that's how I originally found you, because I was looking into his plasma apocalypse thing, and everybody's like talking about Nibiru and pole shift. But then my belief, I'm like, man, there's no rogue planet on elliptical orbit. But then, I had to open my mind a little to what things were, and I started reading about the sun. There's this twin sun, they say, from inner Earth, or if we're in a simulation, it being some type of technology. Now, what do you think Nemesis, the destroyer, what do you think that is? Do you think that's a planet, or what's your belief on that?
It's just another aspect of the same technology, but it's on a totally different timeline. It's every 792 years, and it answers for all the Sumerian and Akkadian references to a very dangerous period of time that only lasted for 60 years at a time. And during that 60 years, that was the window that the Anunnaki had to do whatever they needed to do. And then for a very long period of time, the Anunnaki weren't around. And then a 60-year period would appear again, and the Anunnaki could interact. They could come to Earth. They could do all kinds of things. And then when the 60-year period was over, it was gone. This 60-year period is actually the foundational unit of time for ancient Chinese, Sumerian, Akkadian, and Mesoamerican calendars. So what I found was the 60-year period began in 3499 BC and ended in 3439 BC, which happened to be the Gihon flood under a totally different chronological narrative. In the book of Jasher, as put together chronologically by the biblical chronologist Stephen Jones, we find that 3439 BC was a flood of northern Egypt, and 1/3 of the entire world's population died when something appeared in the sky. This was the 60th year of the Nemesis X object. So I put these two independent systems together, and then I started finding other stuff like Charles Piazzi Smith, 1881. He published a book called The Great Pyramid, Our Divine Inheritance. And in that pyramid, he's got a chart, and he shows the Great Pyramid and shows that one of the aerial shafts points directly up at a series of stars that denote destruction on the world. And he said that the angle of the obliquity measures to the point in our calendar of 3440 BC. That was an approximate, but it's only 1 year off from 3439 BC. So when I look at Charles Piazzi Smith, he's the astronomer royal for Scotland in the 1880s. He knew what he was talking about.
1881, you said?
Yeah, 1881.
That's interesting because the three numbers connected to Nibiru is 811, 181, and then 118. These are it's the same number sequence, just mixed around a little bit.
Well, I would be very interested in your analysis. I would be interested in what words you come up with for the two numbers 732 and 792. And the reason is the Nemesis, I call it the Nemesis X object. I don't want to call it Nibiru. The reason I don't is because, one, its origin is Nemesis.
What's the other one, Jay? 732 and 792?
And 792.
All right.
I call it the Nemesis X object because Zecharia Sitchin has basically polluted the entire community's ideas and concepts. Anytime you hear the word Nibiru, people bring in Zecharia Sitchin's concepts, and they have to be divorced. I don't need people bringing outside baggage into the Archaix paradigm. That type of cross-pollination gets people to understand things differently, and I have to re-educate people and get them away from that concept. The whole 3,600-year orbit of Nibiru and all, there's no historical basis for that. That was a Babylonian mistranslation of the Shar. The Shar to the Babylonians was 360. And
they love that 36, bro, because
of course they do.
666 is the 36 triangular number, you
have to understand that concept. The world was divided into 360 degrees, the degrees of a perfect circle. Therefore, the sky comported with that as well. Therefore, the calendar did as well. Everything was synced before the cataclysm. After the cataclysm, everything broke apart into different calendars, different beliefs, different faiths, different religious systems, different ideologies, and different interpretations of what had happened before the cataclysm. This is what we have in the ancient Near East. This is why we have so many different cultures that are all telling the same story, but they're putting different dressing on it.
I noticed that this number 12 popped up looking into like the numbers. I'm always adding up the numbers like 732, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 732 equals 12, but 138 equals 12. And that 1656 is 138 times 12. In 1902, that reset is 12 as well.
Well, what you're doing is looking at the architecture of the holography itself, and you're reducing it to its lowest common denominators. When you're dealing with numbers in a simulated context, you're going to find patterns that are associative with each other ad infinitum. You will grow into an old man just coming up with all the different calendar associations and all the number associations that are attached to a singular phenomena. So I am not amazed and mystified when I see these. Every single one of these are Phoenix numbers. You know that, every single one of them.
Yeah,
these are all the Phoenix numbers.
Yeah,
Yes.
552 years is a Phoenix cycle. This is the cycle that the Catholic Church
that's interesting.
wanted to hide. I have a video about how the papacy specifically wanted to hide the 552-year cycle, and that's why they created the Anno Domini calendar that we're under today. I have a video that shows you the original text documents. Then 1902, you know, that's the last time the Phoenix was here. 138 is every time the Phoenix is here. 1656 is how many years it was that the pre-flood world endured until the day the sky fell. So, and according to Rashi, I just saw on the computer right here, you guys had Rashi on your desktop.
Yeah.
But according to Rashi, our world is destroyed every 1656 years.
Oops. And also the 552 number, because I've been looking out, me and Tommy, for a couple things. First, we've been looking into the symbolism of the egg, which is like an ancient symbol. In the phoenix, you know, if you think about a phoenix lays an egg. And in the Gemara, which I looked into because of watching your content in Rashi, that I can't verify this, just listening to this rabbinical dude talk about how in the Gemara it talks about a bird lays an egg and destroys a city. But with the Phoenix cycle, the 552 brings, this is from your book, the pseudo mythical traditions of the 4 ages, 4 suns. Is this connected to like the 4 horsemen or the 4 kings or the 4 elements? Because I've been looking at the 4 corners where the eclipse happens and makes the X, and the X is the 24 letter, which is like connected to Jupiter, and it's just
Osiris,
even Elon.
Well, I mean, we have to go back to Hesiod. Hesiod, 800 BC, thereabouts. He's the first actual historical record that we have that divided the world into 4 ages. But that's the first citation of a surviving record. Now the concept is even more ancient, because we know, like, the Aztec stone of the 5th sun concerns 4 ages, which is borrowed from the Maya, and the Maya got it from the Olmeca. The Olmeca were the ones that brought this calendar to the Americas, and it is a calendar that divides the entire history of the world into 4 epochs, and each one ended in some significant earthquake that was related to the sun or sun phenomena. And then the fifth sun is the age that we're in now, and according to interpretation, we are at the very end of that age, and it too will end with a massive earthquake that involves the sun. So these are the old Mesoamerican solar calendars, and the Greek calendars of Hesiod that we find of the ancient ages. And then remember, those ages were gold, silver, iron, gold, silver, bronze, and iron. Those were epics of the world that all ended, each one in some type of epic disaster. We find that same motif in the Old Testament. The Old Testament also divides the world into 4 different prophetic ages, with Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom of Babylon being the head of gold, and then you had the breastplates of Persia. Then you had the Greece was the skirting of bronze, and then the legs were iron. They were Rome. The 2 divisions of Rome were the 2 legs, and then the mixing of the Roman populations and Roman government bleeding over into Europe was the mixing of the iron with the miry clay, the 10 toes, because it's widely known the 10 toes represent the 10 cultures of Europe that came together in 476 AD and beat the hell out of Rome and finally ended the Roman Empire. Under Odovacar the German, he's the one that led the assault against Rome and ended the empire. But by that time, all the European nations were already Romanized. They had already adopted their political system. They had already adopted their symbols and their iconography, and even the religion, Christianity. Everything from ancient Rome was basically assimilated into European culture. And this is why the 10 toes on that prophecy are iron mixed with miry clay, all the way to the last days when a stone would fall from the sky and end all these human empires.
Wow.
Hey, so who was the people besides that German dude that came together to fight Rome? Was there other nations?
Well, I mean, all the 10 nations were like the Sueveli, the Jutes, the Angles, the Burgundians, the Franks, the French people, the Gauls. Oh, I can't name them all 10 of them, but those 10 nations of Europe had come together, and yeah, they had
They had
totally
enough.
they had ended political Rome, but they had actually absorbed it.
Right. Yeah. And then the Catholic Church is like the resurrected Roman Empire anyways, you know what I'm saying?
Hey,
Pretty
I got a puppy that's basically telling me that she's about to shit inside the house. Hold on.
okay, yeah, take her out.
Yeah,
He's
so
very,
this is
he's
this is
very
a,
intelligent, Donut. He's
yeah,
got a lot of information, dude.
yeah,
Wow.
this is the book that I was reading. That's just his book, and I like
Yep,
the
that's the one in the description, guys.
Okay.
It's cheap price too. It's a great read. That link is in the description. I recommend it for everyone.
yeah, I'm really enjoying reading this book, and also I love the art on the because the symbolism in it, like it goes
The
deep.
firmament,
Would this be the phoenix right here, the symbol,
Yes.
and looks like the four corners too,
it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
and Saturn?
You
Oh
can
man,
tell
so
Jason knows a lot about symbolism just in that art right there.
yeah, it's really good. I had a question about Hollywood rituals, right? Hollywood is something I like to go into that whole programming.
Mhm.
And also, just throw out a weird topic is I've been looking into dolphins because the Illuminatus trilogy has the dolphins on there. And I was just going down this dolphin rabbit hole. And while I was doing this, because there's the Simpson Treehouse of Horror episode where these dolphins are under mind control, and it's like a freaky episode.
What?
So I'm looking into dolphins, and at the same time, YouTube is playing in the background, and this guy's talking about how he's a dolphin. Like I'm in like a simulation, like what the heck's going on? And then there's movies like The Day of the Dolphin about a guy who trained a dolphin, put it under MK Ultra mind control. And I'm looking into John C. Lilly doing his experiments with dolphins, and this is where the game Echo Dolphin. But what I'm trying to get at is this is the weird question I'm throwing out there is and here's a Super Bowl. They have the Dolphins, like they're part of the Illuminati. Um,
I've
it,
never seen anything like that.
Yeah,
yeah,
Donut looks into some
I
crazy
look
stuff.
into I go with whatever I kind of want to look at, you know. And I was also researching a lot of your stuff at the same time, and I came up onto this rec with this right computer chip counting the calendar and whatnot, and it brought me to a weapon called a dolphin that was part of this wreck as well, the Antikythera dolphin. And then it got me thinking of the Order of Delphi or whatever. Delphi kind of looks or it sounds like dolphin. Is there any thing in your research? I know it's a weird, like out there question.
Well, actually it's not. It's
666, I think.
actually it's not. I do have a video where I explain that device right there. Robert De Sola Price is the lead archaeologist on that project to clean that and decipher how they've x-rayed it. Zechariah Sitchin has some pretty good material on this device and decoding it. And among academia, they have found that this device is a differential geared computer that allows them to predict cycles forward and backward in time. What they haven't been able to figure out is what cycles it can predict. So when I was looking at the research, I couldn't believe it. I had to release a video about it, but I couldn't believe it that it says that there's a Greek time stamp on this device that and they've showed pictures of it, and interpreted by the Greek scholars, it can only mean one of two things. It's either 585 BC or it's 584 BC. These are the two interpretations by Zechariah Sitchin and Robert De Sola Price. However, I am convinced that device targets 583 BC because both Robert De Sola Price and Zechariah Sitchin, their interpretation of the data is prejudiced because both of them are trying to sync it with the fall of Jerusalem in 585 BC, and you can't do that. The only important date to the whole world back then was the Phoenix phenomenon, which was predicted by Thales of Miletus in the year 585 BC to occur 2 years later, and it did in 583 BC. It did, and it is recorded in the historical record. Herodotus mentions these devices. Herodotus also mentions that the sun darkened as Thales had predicted, and it darkened and terrified two empires to the point to where right there on the battlefield, after 5 years of warfare, they stopped and they made peace and they built a monument, because this wasn't the moon darkening the sun. This basically scared them straight, and they thought it was an omen from the gods that they shouldn't continue this war. So the Lydians and the Medes made peace, and they built a monument, and today that monument can still be seen at Yasilakaya, and it shows two emperors shaking hands, but in between their hands is a black sun. This is all in my video. This is called the Antikythera computer. And this is where I show that this was a device that was used to predict Phoenix phenomenon events.
Wow. Yeah. So like looking into all this, like it's just weird how things, because in the same shipwreck, they had this dolphin weapon, and it's funny
That's
how
very interesting, Doenut.
Well, it's not only that, but remember, we're living in a simulation, and it gives itself away all the time.
Yep.
It was discovered in 1900. It wasn't cleaned and taken out with the other shipwreck parts until 1901. But it was 1902 that the public first heard about it. 1902 was a Phoenix year.
Wow. So
that's crazy.
One last question. With all the Hollywood stuff that I've been looking into, where's this coming from? Because I've been reading all these crazy, like, wild books on how plants, can communicate, and going into other books that talk about how there was fertility rituals, so the plants knew that there was the orgone energy happening to make the plants grow more. And then you have all these sacrifices that makes the plants grow as well with the phosphorus. Just reading all this stuff and looking into the Grammys this year, how they have all the devil worshiping stuff. Where is this coming from?
Okay. The best way to put context on elaborate rituals involving multiple people that are seen by even more people is to understand the field that you're immersed in. This field is a neutral field, and what you're describing is patterning. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know why they're doing it. What I'm going to tell you is what they're doing. Okay? So patterning, this is a very ancient procedure. These massive rituals involving a lot of people, they are trying to effect something in the field. And the field is going to always reflect back as phenomena what is being projected into it. So you need to decipher what the ritual is about before you can understand what energy is being projected into the field. Because every single one of these incidents of Olympic Games or a mass demonstration of people that are all chanting the same thing, these are all attempts to basically upload information into the field. The people that orchestrate these events, they understand this holography. The elite are not stupid. They've been playing this game for a very long time. This is why every 138 years, their coward asses are hiding in the underground while the Phoenix phenomenon takes off. The Phoenix has always taken these people out when they're on the surface. This is a very old, ancient game. So these are the people that signed the contract. These are the people that want to rule the entire world. And if you paid attention to that passage in Revelation, the sixth seal, the Phoenix phenomenon is designed to lay low the kings and the princes of this world. Now, just the opposite about the meek of the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth. But you don't want to be in that group either, because they get looped back as well. There's always rulers and there's always the ruled. What you want to be is the prodigal son. You want to be the one that rebelled against all control systems, even family. You want to be the one that just took off. You want to be the one that went your own way, and you want to be the one that woke up and came back to tell others what you found. In the story of the prodigal son in the Bible, you don't have any glory going to the son that never left. He enjoys being a part of the construct, part of the society. He enjoys being the one that never got wisdom from the hard way, the one that never tripped and fell and learned from his mistakes. He enjoys being the one that's lived the comfortable life. It's not the one you want to be. You want to be the prodigal son. You want to be the one that lost all your wealth, lost all your money. You lost respect with the community. You did whatever you did to learn and to achieve the information that you've come across in this life. And now you're ready to go, because once you've woken up, you're no good to the system anymore. You are now a malfunction in a system of controlled chaos. It's time for you to go. That's the beauty of waking up. And this is what I'm trying to convince people all the time. There is no effort you have to make to exit the system. That's going to come by virtue of who you've become.
I love that. That's very individualism. It's one of like my favorite philosophies, and like getting into some Nietzsche and just all these philosophers that I like.
I like Nietzsche. I quote him frequently.
I know you do.
I quote him frequently.
I really enjoy learning over the last years of just on the individualism of stepping away from society, and all these guys like Emerson as well just left, went out into the woods. And it's very it's something. So were you saying that just gets a lot of the fear stuff away? Because whenever I heard about Nibiru, for example, or Planet X, that stuff like freaks me out. I'll even watch tornadoes and tsunamis on YouTube. It freaks me out, you know.
Well, look, I understand you get freaked out, but this is what I tell people on my own channel, and I go into a lot of depth on this. Like I tell you, what you fear, you participate in, because this is a neutral field. It doesn't give a damn what your feelings are. It doesn't care about your personal philosophies. Being a neutral field allows you a great opportunity to decide your own coordinates in the future. And if you're not fearing a future event that you know is going to be harrowing for other people, then this simulacrum, this simile of a real reality. You're not in a real reality. This is a construct. It is designed so whatever happens here will never cross-pollinate or contaminate the outside reality, the real world. This is a builder protocol. This is where immortal souls come to be. This is where immortal souls come to experience things they cannot do outside the construct. This is where you get to wear a flesh suit, where now an element of danger is pain, the danger of pain, of accidents, of death. All these things that are true immortal on the outside of the construct can only intellectually comprehend. Inside the construct, immortals can come in here and experience these things, and by virtue of experience, they can learn, grow, adapt, mature, and acquire all these things that when they exit the simulacrum, they can go and share with other worlds. Because my concept is a little different than what you're probably used to hearing, because I believe that the oversoul is eternal. And if I'm going to believe that the oversoul is eternal, then I have to attach that significance to it, meaning that there was no such thing as a creation. The creation is not a singularity. It's not an event. It is something that is ongoing. And if the creation is ongoing, then there's also a necessity for maturing souls to take on new roles throughout the cosmos. If creation is unending and God is eternal, then that means every one of us are never going to stop growing, and that the scriptures are absolutely true. We are gods in the making.
Wow. That's very, very interesting. Yeah, I think like I tell people all the time, don't fear what's coming. You know, I like how you say if you fear it, you're participating in it. Well, you're giving energy to it too, you know.
That's it. That's what you're doing.
But yeah, dude, it's been, I don't know how you remember all this stuff, Jason. I thought I had a photographic memory, bro. You are like the stuff you remember with the dates and years and That's awesome.
It's not a mystery, guy. It's not a mystery. Listen, I do not have I do not have a past to be proud of. All right. I've even given very personal details about my life. It's not as bad as it looks on paper, but still, I didn't stop when I went to prison. I became the very criminal they thought I was when I was 17 years old and sent me to prison. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't go to prison and just rehabilitate. I actually totally immersed in prison.
I went at 17 too, bro.
But I mean, I did that. But at the same time, what else is there to do but read? I read, write. I mean, that's what I did for over 2.5 decades. So my memory is by virtue of repetition. Many of the things I had to record my sources. I can't, as a prisoner, I can't keep a huge library. So I data mine. I make sure I get all the notes I need from one book, and I have to write them by hand. And then I have to organize them by hand, which means I got to write them twice. And then in the future, with new information, I got to write them a third time to put them into context with all the new discoveries I had made. And when you do this for 2.5 decades, by the time you get out of prison, you have, because you understand, I never could keep all this. My family kept every single bag. About 3 times a year, my family would visit, and I would deliver them a bag at visitation. In that bag was all my research materials that was organized, all in files, everything dated, all my source materials, every title of a book. And I mean, this isn't me talking out the side of my mouth. The people in Archaix know, because I have free PDF downloads that anybody can see, and you can see all the books that I read, who the authors were, dates of publications, and actual pictures of the books. So
you wrote a lot too.
Well, yeah, I did write a lot, but what I'm saying is my memory is simply there's nothing supernatural about it. It comes by repetition. I just wrote these things over and over, and I wasn't dating. I was in prison. I didn't have hobbies, so there's no travel time to and from work. I'm there. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have anything to distract me. What I did is develop an addiction for coffee. So coffee and a nightlight.
Your videos.
Yeah, and that's what. Yeah, coffee.
Jason said, donate coffee to him, guys. He's down with that.
People do. About once or twice a month, I get a package with some exotic coffee in it.
Oh, my people will hook you up, and we've had over 950 people in here the whole time.
That's good.
You know, so yeah, they do. Everybody in the comments, some of the people that didn't know you really, really like you a lot, and I knew mine and Donuts people would definitely like you. And there was a lot of questions I couldn't answer with the whole Phoenix thing. I tried my best listening to you and other people, but
hey, you know what? Listen, if it's taken me 80-something videos to get all this data out on the Phoenix, you can't expect in a podcast that we're going to even cover 1% of it. You know what I mean?
So I think we covered a lot of good stuff in this in almost 2 hours. And before we go, guys, well, I do want to ask you one more question, Jason. Then I'm going to go to questions for them, see if anybody's got questions. When you was in jail, did you know you wanted to do this when you got home?
Okay, my first decade, 17 to 27, 28 years old, my first decade, I was doing something else. I was basically reading the Bible. I wasn't reading nonfiction books. I was during my knucklehead years in my cell, though, I was reading my Bible, and I tried to knock out about 100 pages a day. And after about 10 and a half, 11 years, I had been through Genesis to Revelation about 40 times, and I have the notes to prove it. And I went back and forward and trying to find every gem that I could in the scriptures. But it was also during this period that I started reading some of these other nonfiction books in archaeology and anthropology, and I started seeing that the world was much bigger than the scriptures conveyed, and I noticed the holes. And as my fascination with chronological systems wasn't satisfied from just the Bible, because once I put on paper, when I started drawing charts of the biblical chronology, when I started putting all this together, I noticed these vast gaps that are inexplicable that the Bible doesn't even cover. So I looked to the secular histories. I started going to the library and pulling all those books out to fill those gaps. And when I did, that's when I started making all my discoveries. And by the time I was 35 or 36 years old, I started realizing that there were mathematical patterns that are inexplicable here. in that I'm not imagining these things. And I started recording even more, and it didn't make sense to me. So it was probably 2002 when I discovered the Phoenix phenomenon, and it was just the first few events that were all 138 years apart, and I didn't understand what I found, so I shelved it. And I did more and more research on cataclysms. Now I probably read another 150 books from 2002 to 2004, and in that period of time, that those 150 or so books were all about cycles of cataclysm from everywhere I could find them. And my publisher was helping me. He was sending a bunch of stuff, and I was ordering books from my publisher's catalog, where old reprints, Booktree in San Diego, long before I became a published author. 2004 is when I made the discovery on this cycle, and I discovered the cycle leading to Phoenix 2040 at the exact same time that I discovered the Nemesis X cycle that ends in 2046 in the month of November. They both discoveries were at the same time, but my publisher wanted to release the books in a certain order. So he released the Lost Scriptures of Giza first, showing the secrets and the esoteric information about the Great Pyramid. Then he released the Phoenix Phenomenon video, a book, When the Sun Darkens, second. Then he released Anunnaki Homeworld. But by the time Anunnaki Homeworld was done, I made so many new discoveries on the Phoenix Phenomenon, he went ahead and published Nostradamus and the Plants of Apocalypse, which is all new Phoenix data. It had stuff that's not even mentioned in the first book. So, and from there, I just kept rolling. I got Giants on Ancient Earth is another book I've had published, and then Shocking.
You got a lot of books, dude. I'm trying to write one right now. I posted a little short of it on my Facebook, but it's not easy to write. So I know what you put into that, bro. And the one book I did read of yours, the one Doenut showed, I thought was phenomenal. I got to check some of these other ones out you got. How many you got totally?
17.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Nibiru equals 17. Interesting.
Yeah. My best-selling book is also my smallest, because I wanted to make it easy accessible. I wanted to make it affordable, and I wanted it to be a sit-down. You need to be able to read it in one sitting. It's Awaken the Immortal Within. It's basically, I spend the first 15 or 16 pages trying to convince you that you're not ready for this data. That's what I do in the first 16, 17 pages. I'm just trying to convince you, hey, listen, you're probably not ready to hear this. But and I do a pretty persuasive job of turning people off from reading it. And then when you get to about 17, 18 pages in, I flip the switch and I basically give you the template for how our reality works. And I'm telling you now, the people that follow Archaix on my own channel will tell you that they live by these tenets, and they have watched my channel I started my channel from inside of a wooden shack with $27 in my pocket. After I got out of prison, I was living on a motorcycle in a backpack. And I'm telling you now that people have watched my channel not only grow, but as I make developments in my life, applying the very principles that I teach, I'm telling you now, all the acquisitions I've made, the vehicles, the buildings, my property. My property's not even big enough for what I have now. I'm still growing, and I still have more and more coming to me right now. Offers of not just of friendship and opportunities, but I have to slow people down from wanting to give things because I don't have ways to apply them yet. But Archaix is growing. The Archaix family is growing. Matt and I are already talking about, we live on separate properties. He's got, but he lives very close to me. And
you live in Texas, right? That's where my dad lives.
We're growing so fast. We're already talking about getting a piece of land, and we have people that want to help us do that now. But we're talking about getting a large, like 40 acres, and starting like a huge commune type, a community type deal. But one that's not going to be like the Koresh compound. None of that shit.
Right.
Will you be having your conventions in Arizona anytime soon?
I'll probably be passing through Arizona really, really fast on the way to San Diego. I got to go pick up about 1,000 books. And instead of mailing, I'm just going to go to San Diego, visit my publisher, do a video with him. I'll be passing through Arizona and New Mexico real soon, probably within the next 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah. If there's like a meetup or whatever, I'd love to go
to it. A meetup. I can meet you for lunch or something, but I'm not planning any meetups right now. But in New Mexico I am. I just don't know when, but it should be before the end of the year.
Cool. Ain't you about to do a tour thing or something, Jason?
Well, the first meetup is on April 1st. the first meetup, and it's pretty much it's almost sold out. We've had to upgrade the venue 2 times since we initially started it. Got a lot of people involved now. But
how do people get to that if they wanted to? If you're not all sold out yet?
I'm pretty sure it's pretty close to being sold out. I'm
Oh,
talking
is
about
it?
maybe it maybe might be 5 seats open. I don't know. I checked last night and it was like down to 5 seats left. It's hard to tell, but I mean I'll be doing one soon in Florida as well. I got people in Florida and New York that want to orchestrate these. We just have to this
I'm
one
in
right
Ohio.
here. This one being the first one, we had to iron a lot of things out. But I think they're going to come together a whole lot faster and more efficiently here in the near future.
Hey, what do you think about this train shit and all these chemical spills we have up here in Ohio? And now it's like
And
a theme; it's happening everywhere.
you know what? I'm really not abreast on current events. I know what you're talking about, but I have no data on that whatsoever. I've been very busy trying to finish my Archaix movie so I can go ahead and get it posted because it's really slowed me down. My content is a lot more high paced than it has been in January and February. I'm normally releasing a video every 48 hours, and this movie has slowed me down. So
I want to see it. I can't
I'm
wait
trying
to
to
hear.
finish it, get it on my channel.
Was that interesting making the movie?
Listen. I'm not making any complaints because donations took care of it all. But I'm gonna tell you now, I'm not gonna do it again. Hey, this cost more money than I ever would have imagined. It's yeah. I,
Donut, we need to shoot a movie, dude.
Yeah,
That would be
that's
fire.
what I do. I do the video editing, so I've put together so many
well,
presentations.
let me tell you what I mean by the cost. Okay, I wanted to do something special, so instead of using human characters and all that, I went and bought all the miniatures and everything I needed to build the pre-flood world. All the technology, communities, all the little action figures. I am telling the story of everything that happened in the pre-flood world up until the Great Flood. And the video ends with the Great Flood. And it's me narrating even the building of the Great Pyramids. I'm actually using pavers, white pavers with little action figures. I'm with their equipment. Man, listen, this movie is fantastic.
Oh, dope!
It
Is it
took
like a stop motion at
Okay,
all?
it's everything. I've got stop motion in it. I've got real videos I purchased from different providers like Shutterstock. It's all mixed in. I even used apps to manipulate images to put motion in those images. It has
That's
taken
sick.
me forever. I have every little technique I could come up with to make this interesting. But actually, if you look in the pictures, it's a real serious narrative. I'm talking about it's really serious as far as what I'm talking about. The music is dire, it's really serious, but I'm educating people, showing, look, man, you ain't got to read 100 books to know this information. Just watch this movie, and I'm summing it all up. This is how the pre-flood world unfolded. But if you look closely in a lot of the pictures, I've got little things you'll bust out laughing. I got all kinds of little things hidden among
I like that.
among the figurines and all that. I even have a couple other YouTubers that have done the intros and the outros for the movie.
That's dope. That's dope.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
that's
a
awesome.
big fan of art, and I feel like filmmaking is one of the highest forms of art because you got all the elements of
My
music and
God, it's hard though, man. It's hard.
yeah, yeah. But it's gonna be dope, bro. Like I don't
I
know if
need
you
to
ever got
listen.
into
I need to hurry
Warner.
up and get rich and pay somebody else to do this because I'm not doing it again. Yeah,
Have you ever seen Werner Herzog films at all?
no, I'm not familiar with it.
I like listening to documentaries of other filmmakers who were independent, like Werner Herzog, who carried in his movie Fitzcarraldo. They carried a huge ship over a mountain with a native tribe, and that was the movie. It was about
Wow.
it. So I love to hear. Even George Lucas. I know you're going to be doing a Star Wars video soon, but listening to the behind the scenes documentaries. I love the
Right.
behind the scenes stuff because there's so much that goes into it. Yeah.
Man, you know what? It would probably be a best-selling video or a best-watched video if Matt or I ever accidentally kept the mics hot after a video. All the little bickering and arguing we do in the studio.
Do any of the people in the comments? I know you guys got some good questions for Jason, so we're gonna because we did it 2 hours and 2 minutes. That's a lot. for a guest. Now, does
Yeah,
anyone?
thank you so much.
Yeah, I would love to have you on again, Jason. I really enjoyed talking with you. I love your work. I'm actually a big fan. I put your stuff up on my website all the time. Me and Doenut started Truth Mafia. I got it getting built right now, and it's going to be like a Netflix of truther channels. So, like, when people like you drop a new video, I'll throw it up on there. People like Doenut, it's going to be everybody, not just
Oh
about
yeah, I like that concept. Yeah, yeah.
right. So people, because my people, that's one thing I'm real good for. I bring my people the best educators. I feel like I don't want it to just be about me. I want to show them, oh, if you like the Phoenix phenomenon, here, go check out Archaix. If you're into symbolism and stuff, check out Doenut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not enough people do that, man. Their ego doesn't let them. I think. I don't know.
I'm all for it.
So okay, here's the first question. What is Nibiru, Jason? Julie M. Smith. He did kind of break that
Yeah,
down
you broke that down.
though.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, Nibiru is almost an invention of Zechariah Sitchin. It's like I said, I call it the Nemesis X object. I don't believe it's a intruder planet. I believe it's technology hidden in our sky. It's cloaked.
I
And
believe that too.
it,
And
that,
he has a whole section on his YouTube channel explaining it in detail.
yeah.
So you guys can find all this too.
I like this question, Marky Marks. Are dinosaurs real? Just because my rabbis would tell me
Oh
they
yeah,
weren't
that's a good
real.
question.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think they're real.
Listen, I have to speak from personal experience. That's all I can. When you ask me questions like that are outside the context of my actual chronological and historical research, listen. Well, I went to Glen Rose State Dinosaur Park in Texas twice in the 1980s. I never saw a dinosaur skeleton, but I'm telling you, in the Paluxy Basin River in Texas, the reason that park is there is because there are hundreds of three-toed tracks that a 6-foot man can lay in. And they're right, there's hundreds of them. People take pictures in them all the time. So I saw this twice as a kid. Now, was it giant birds like rocks? Was it giant vapor canopy era? That during the vapor canopy, they had the wingless birds were gigantic. They were still huge. They were still huge in the 1500s, all throughout Madagascar, Australia, that whole area of the southern hemisphere, all those island chains out there, the moas. These different birds have become extinct, but they were noted by Westerners in the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. And these wingless birds have these giant three-toed deals, just like dinosaur tracks. So I don't know if these are dinosaur tracks or if they're wingless bird tracks from North America from a very long time ago, because all the tracks are petrified. I don't know. I can just tell you that those tracks are real, and I've laid in them. But
Is the petrification come from the plasma?
okay, that's where I differ with Jay
Okay.
Greenberg on some stuff. I don't know. I don't know anything about plasma. Plasma seems to be a catch-all word for a lot of truthers out there to describe phenomena that's otherwise inexplicable. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it. What I do know is that on my own channel, I have videos that show over 80 photographs of fossilized earthworms, butterfly wings fossilized, dragonflies found fossilized. How do you fossilize? How do you petrify a jellyfish? There's no bones in a jellyfish. And even worse, how do you petrify a jellyfish that's 300 foot underwater?
Yeah, how do
And
you do that?
how do you turn to stone two animals that are fighting each other and the hackles on their hairs are both raised up? How do you do that? What happened in the ancient world that could justify all these anomalous fossils? How does archaeologists find whole clam beds that used to be on an ocean bottom completely petrified, and all the clams or the shells are closed? That's impossible, because when a clam dies, the muscles relax and the shell opens. But that's not how we find the clam beds. So what happened that made all these different insects freeze to death instantly at the same time that crabs, lobsters, and cephalopods, and all sponges, they've all been found fossilized. Jellyfish, squid. Listen, the pictures I show on my channel are fish giving birth to baby fish and being frozen in time, petrified. I have pictures of fish with other fish in their mouths going down their throat, solid stone. How does this happen? The only
What's
way.
your theory?
Well, I mean, other theories I've come across don't answer for this anomaly, but in my Archaix research, the only thing I can come up with is there's a fine point in between simulations when one simulation ends and another world begins, and it's a flash freezing. The entire program stops and everything is flash frozen, and then it reboots, and that during that rebooting period, the energy is down. Everything inside the construct that the artificial intelligence doesn't want here gets ejected out. Everything's ejected out, and then it powers back up, starts a whole new ecosphere, new land, new life forms. The fossil record is what shows this. It doesn't show evolution. It doesn't show natural selection. It doesn't even show punctuated gradualism or equilibrium. It doesn't show any of that. It shows stops that are so final that the very next thing was an absolute and total recreation, because there's no life forms that pass that. There's no way. If everything fossilized from mountaintops to ocean beds, then the model we have for the scientific record is bullshit. Something else has been happening. And this is where we get the Cambrian mystery. This is the greatest mystery in science. How in the hell are all the life forms that are found way down here in the Cambrian period still in this world today as living organisms? You understand? You can go in your backyard right now and dig through the dirt, and you're going to find insect life forms that are identical to ones we found fossilized. How is that possible? And also, we have to take into consideration that if the model that is presented to us by science is true, then how in the hell does Africa still have monkeys?
Right. And they say we evolved from that. That's a bunch of bullshit too, because monkeys would still be evolving to this day, wouldn't they? If
everything would have evolved. Listen, if the evolutionary natural selection, if the uniformitarian model was absolutely true, then that means there would be lizard people all over the world way before humans could have ever been allowed to develop.
All this girl here said she's going to capture you in her basement, Taja June. Oh shit!
May not be a bad thing.
It might not be a bad thing. Might be fun down there. Yeah. That's crazy though, Jay. I never thought of that, and I'm a diehard believer in simulation. And what you said before, when you said flat Earth will only get you so far, it's a good stepping point, but then you got to evolve out of it, and,
right.
and it goes into simulation, and that's crazy. I never thought about that. Like when it reboots into another phase, and then that.
This is what I do. Look, Tommy, in the Archaix paradigm, this is what I'm telling my listeners all the time. We cannot cherry pick data. We can't do what scientists do. If we're going to get to the bottom of the real reality that we're in, the worst thing in the world we can do is practice exclusions. I'm not going to ever be accused by anybody of practicing exclusions. I'm going to take whatever mysteries and anomalies you present to me, and I'm going to show you how simulation theory answers for all of them. In the scientific paradigm, what they do is they practice exclusions, meaning if they want to take 60 potassium argon relative dating samples from a certain area to get a certain date, by the time it becomes peer reviewed for the rest of science to look at, they have already eliminated 40 something of those samples, so they can come to you truthfully and say, we have 27 samples right here that all affirm that this rock right here is exactly 222 million years old. Now, in order to get that, though, they had to eliminate. This is why scientists are allowed to take hundreds of samples, and then they'll remove all the samples that don't comport with what they're trying to convey, and then they're actually telling the truth. But the lie is where is the omission. They didn't say any of this though. They didn't tell you. They didn't tell you the real. I got lots of coffee. I just read that.
That made me laugh.
Hey,
treat them very good, she said.
Yes, man. The omission is where all the danger is. That's where all the deception is. So
they're answering truthful, kind of, but not really.
Yeah.
Not really, because they're being deceptive as shit.
Yep, it is true.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Any more questions, guys, for Jason besides kidnapping him in the basement and shit? That's funny though. My people are crazy, man. But yes, mud floods. It happens so fast. That's why we have many. What's this one say? Many dinosaur skeletons and fossils in our country because we have huge, fast mud floods. What do you think about the mud floods? Do you think that's part of the whole thing?
I'm gonna give you an example. All right. This liquefaction is caused by the Phoenix phenomenon when it sounds like a horn blast from the sky. One of the characteristics of the Phoenix phenomenon is a humming comes from the sky that vibrates the ground so acutely with such intensity that the ground under people's feet begins to feel like it's liquefying, but it's not. It's vibrating so much that the organics of an avatar can't match that vibration rate because those are solids that were standards. Solids will always vibrate faster than organics will. And this is what makes people sink into the ground. You're basically not even touching the ground. It's vibrating to where it's losing its physicality. It's losing its structure. So this is what happened with the Philadelphia experiment. It was an experiment to try to get the naval ship to go invisible by using vibratory harmonics. So when they vibrated the steel frame of the ship to a certain degree, they didn't take into consideration that the people on board would never resonate because they're made of all liquid, and it would take them a lot longer for them to maintain that resonance to equal that of the ship. So the ship was vibrating on a different frequency of the men, and that's why the men died terrible deaths. They sank into the steel. Then when when they turned the machine off, those men were stuck in the steel, and there's no way to get them out.
Yeah, man. And some of them that they did cut out, they were all messed up. And that ship really did, I don't know what you would call it, teleport somewhere else, didn't it?
I don't remember. I just remember this experiment was for invisibility, not teleportation.
But it ended up teleporting, Mark.
Yeah, it might have ended up moving somewhere else. But another problem they didn't take in consideration was they should have did it on dry ground. Instead, they did it on a body of water, and it moved the ship. And the movement of the ship is what put those men inside that steel also even deeper.
Did you ever see that, Doenut? How they're stuck in the ship?
Yeah, the Philadelphia experiment.
Dude.
Yeah, I'm happy that you brought that up. Yeah, it's just interesting. I was just listening. The whole vibration thing just got my mind going.
It's crazy. It's
crazy.
But
the whole like melting into the ground, but the vibration. It's just,
this is why you have. That's why you have your melted buildings. It's the Phoenix phenomenon's doing that. It's also why you have so many different archaeological sites are completely buried in dirt, and archaeologists like at Göbekli Tepe, they have to come up with this stupid ass theories saying, well, maybe the people who built this place decided for whatever reasons to bury it in dirt before they left. It is the stupidest archaeological theory I've ever heard in my life.
They say it on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, it's a dumb theory. It's a dumb theory. What actually happened was the Phoenix phenomenon. The Phoenix phenomenon is not just liquefying the ground through this vibration, this horn blast, but it's also dumping mud and red dust, sometimes burying whole cities without a trace. This has been going on for thousands of years. The Phoenix phenomenon is multiple different things happening at the same time.
I mean, it makes sense, like just putting all the dots together, and I'm pretty, new to all the information, but just the idea of a plant is able to read our intentions, for example, or the fear, that vibration of fear. And that vibration sounds that if you are, let's say, not fearful of the event, or that you won't even be in the location, most likely. Just thinking like that, that's where my brain's going.
Yeah. Well, I
Well,
mean,
it makes way more sense what Jason just said than a lot of the people that believe in the plasma apocalypse says it's plasma when it punches through the firmament, it liquefies the ground. And I think what you're saying makes more sense to me though.
well,
Yeah.
let's Donut hit up on a really interesting point when it comes to these cataclysms. Now, we're in a field that operates on a principle of non-locality. So non-locality means that the field is able to transport an observer to a place of safety if they just think about being safe. This is why I'm telling you all the time, you can't fear a future event because that makes you a participant of it. So with this beautiful aspect, this quantum aspect of our holography, this non-locality characteristic of the neutral field, it means that any personality can impress upon the neutral field whatever experiences it wants to experience. So if you know something dangerous is happening, all you have to do is project safety. You don't have to come up with the details. You don't have to use your intellect. All you have to do is the mental projection that you will be safe and move forward knowing that you're going to be safe. And the non-locality principle in this field is going to make sure that the safe you becomes the real you, because anything you think, you're automatically fracturing off another timeline. Meaning, if you're fearing the future, you're on that timeline to experience it. But if you know a future event, it needs to be feared, but instead you project safety and that I'm going to be okay, you have just fractured off another timeline. Non-locality means that in this beautiful holography, there's two of you. One of you is the fearful you, one of you is the one that doesn't fear and knows you'll be all right. And because of your attitude in being all right as you live your daily life, you change timelines and you start on the trajectory of the one that's going to be navigated safely through whatever events are coming. This is why I'm telling people on my channel all the time, you can't fear a future event. You cannot succumb to dungeon programming. Dungeon programming is designed to get you in that fear mode. And the best way to start practicing your total divorcement from dungeon programming is never watch the media. Leave it alone. The media is a tool of the artificial intelligent construct to keep people corralled into negative default programming. Because as long as they're under that programming, you're not a risk. You're not an errant. You're not a malfunction in this system. Therefore, when the time comes for the reboot, you're somebody it can keep, and you're going to get recycled right back into this entire timeline all over again as other personalities. But everyone that it cannot control because they make their own timelines is those that it will eject.
Wow, that's interesting. AIX equals 34 matching Ukraine too, Donut. I wonder that whole shit. You know, the
Oh,
AI is controlling a lot of this. I like how you call it AIX too, because they love that X. And if you watch the mainstream media, that's 100% what they try to do.
yes, it
Lower
is.
your vibration, keep you in fear. There's something to it all. You know, have you ever looked into before we go? Have you ever looked into the Vril and loose energy? How they try to harvest this loose energy? The Vril
I've
Adolf
never
Hitler
really I've
went.
never really been interested in it. I've read a few books about the Nazi philosophy and their discoveries about the underground race of the Vril.
Yeah,
Antarctica. I've read some of that material, but it's just never been really mysterious to me because I'm already on board with the fact that an artificial intelligent apparatus is working in tandem with an underground species to keep humanity enslaved. I'm already on board with it. So no, any new packaging for the same old theory, it just doesn't really.
yeah, I
It's
get
no,
it.
it's no big deal to me. I'm already there. This is just new packaging.
They said Hitler in 1938 that he seen planet Nemesis in the sky, and that's when he said now it's time for war. And it's linked to the murder of Malachi Martin in The Secret. Have you ever heard about that?
No, I haven't.
I got a video I'll send you after this. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
But it actually shows something he's seeing in the sky, and a bunch of people were murdered. There was this priest that went on like a radio show, and he was talking about it. He didn't even really get into it deep, but he ended up getting murdered. Malachi Martin. It's pretty crazy, man. And I would just wonder, well, damn, 1938, would Nemesis even be anywhere around during
No,
that?
listen, 1917, we had the famous Fatima apparition, and we know that over 5,500 people personally witnessed, and a lot of them were upper clergy of the cardinals, people of the papacy. They were there, and they witnessed the sun zigzag. Then it plunged to the earth and came back down. And we already know this is impossible. It's impossible because it would have been seen way beyond Italy. Because if the sun would have done that, you would have seen that from France, Germany. You would have seen that from the Middle East. You would have seen that from across the Mediterranean, from Libya, North Africa. You would have seen that everywhere if that truly happened in Portugal, like the record. I'm not saying they didn't see that. What I'm saying is everything in our sky is simulated. That's not a real sun. We're not 93 million miles away from that object. It's highly local. And
Yes.
this is what I have shown on my channel multiple times, that these super constructions every once in a while are seen and documented when the power source in the sky fails, because sometimes it does. On my channel, I have videos where I recorded the historical record. People actually looked up and saw what was really there because the sky sim collapsed. And it was only a short collapse, 10 minutes to 5 or 6 hours. But when it happened, I mean, they try to draw on woodcuts and parchment the best approximations for what they saw. But you have to understand, these are primitive frames of reference trying to explain something that was basically so sophisticated it was beyond their ability to comprehend.
Yeah, they wasn't even thinking about simulation theory probably back
No,
then. You know what I'm saying?
no.
But wow, that's interesting. I wonder how that event happened. Like if it was AIX or if it was something they did. Look, because the Catholic Church has to have technology that has been around probably forever, and my personal opinion, they probably work with whoever's really running shit down below us. You know,
Yeah.
I would love to go down there. Oh, so the last question before we let you get up out of here, Jason, and thank you so much for coming. What about all the people that say there's aliens down there, and some people think it's the Nephilim? What do you think about that?
Again, they're just putting packaging on a phenomenon that we already admit, that there is a race down there. I don't know. I tend to believe they're closer to being human than anything, but just like we have fragments, pieces of this information from the Sumerian text, such as the Edens, which was later translated in the book of Genesis. When the Genesis was written, it was put out as Eden, a garden paradise, where mankind was kicked out of. But it's more like Edens are these old fortifications, because it means walled enclosure. These are old fortifications by a subterranean race. The subterranean race came up out of their mountains, because this is what we find in ancient records, that the gods came from out of mountains. They didn't come from the sky. They came from out of caves and out of mountains. And the gods show up, and they build these walled fortifications, and some of them have these zappers and sphinxes that will zap you if you get too close. But we have the origin of humanity in the present construct as having come out of one of these constructions and then cast out into the earth, but psychological warfare was applied. These victims who were kicked out of paradise, where they were manufactured and made by an underground species that can't come to the surface, were the psychological warfare was they were made to feel guilty for their exile. This curse of sin isn't true. Mankind isn't guilty of anything. We are the victims. And they put us on the surface and then let us go to develop and do whatever, because they can cull from us resources like gold, precious metals. They can basically tell the elite what they need down there, and the surface world will produce it. So,
like they live. You watch that, Jason? They Live, the movie.
Oh, that was one of my favorite movies in the 80s.
Mine too, brother. And remember, the others, these weird looking fuckers, they were working with the elites of the world.
Yep.
Oh, very, very similar. Donut, do you have any questions? And then we'll let Jason plug whatever he needs to plug. And
Oh no, just super grateful spending this time with you. Thank you for coming on, and it's been a pleasure. And I look forward to finishing up that book too, and checking out some more stuff.
Awesome.
Hey guys, don't forget, get your technology. They were nice enough to sponsor this video. You see your boys wearing both of them. Donut's got his on, and they sponsor platforms like this. Jason, I'll plug you too if you need some sponsorship, man.
All right, but for now, let's wait about a month, 3 weeks to 4 weeks. By that time, my Archaix movie will be out. I'm almost done, and I got some things going on this month, but I'll do a little traveling too. But let's wait about a month. Y'all come up with a different topic other than Phoenix, and let's just freestyle that one. Let's just go off.
Yeah, I'm down, brother. I really enjoyed you a lot today.
As far as my plugs, I've already got my whole online presence is pretty much filtered through Archaix.com. You go to Archaix.com, it'll take you everywhere.
Okay, guys, Archaix.com. That link's down below in the description. The link to his book, his YouTube channel. Go check the book out. Doenut said it's phenomenal. I already read it. I loved it. And with that being said, 228, that's a good number to end on. We love y'all. Knowledge is power. tommytruthful.com.